that part of the song because it starts over, and I always think I'm like, oh, Dave, you're
late. No, I'm late. And Chris is always first in the chat room. Almost always. Clearing YouTube cache, YouTube cache cleared, YouTube cache cleared. That's hard to say.
YouTube cache.
The cache cleared cache.
Clash. You want to say clash? Clash cleared. Clish claw.
Clish Claw cleared cache by the
Clish claw cleared cache by the seashore.
by the seashore. Chris, Steven, Pedro, Mark. Let's go to our faces. Todd, what's up?
Clish claw cleared caches by
Cassius Clay.
Caches.
Crash.
Clogged clashes.
Cache for gold.
Clogged caches.
the clogged Clish claw cleared caches by the clogged
caches.
clogged
Clogged caches by the
clogged cogs. There we go. By the Celtic shore. I don't know. By the Clish claw
by the
cleared
Celtic
caches
coast.
By the Celtic coast. That's good. Celtic coast.
There you go.
Someone add that to a
The sign-in
Slackbot
quote.
auto.
Yeah.
Anytime someone says Clish claw cleared caches by the Celtic coast.
See?
I almost had it.
Yeah.
Clish claw cleared caches by the Celtic coast. There you go.
Okay.
How many Clish claw cleared if a Clish claw
my
could
gosh.
clear caches?
That's great.
I'm recording this. You can use that for episode 200 if you want.
There you go. All right, I got the chat refreshed. Let's see if we're getting chat, and I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, there once was a man from Nantucket.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark says you have to say it 3 times fast at camp to get a beer.
And if you can't say it, then
Ash Thorpe
we know
comes
you've
out of the
had too
mirror.
much.
Right? You go in the dark.
Yeah. You turn out the light, and then in the bathroom, and then you say it 3 times in the mirror, and then the Clish claw comes out and
Wow.
murders your whole family.
The Bloody Mary you just brought back.
I know. Oh my goodness.
Clish claw cleared caches by the Celtic coast. Clish claw cleared caches.
There we go.
Yeah. Can't do it.
We got chat. I think we're good to go. Let's start rolling on our things.
Okay.
And I'm rolling here.
I am rolling here.
This is the only position in which my hair looks somewhat decent.
So just turn
I
it that
decided-
way.
Like,
Just
this is why I
put the
look
camera
this
to
way.
the side.
Like literally, the camera is right here.
Put the
I
camera to
decided
the
this
side
way.
and we'll just look at your bathroom behind you or something instead. Or yeah. Or tell Nick to go sit next to you as a background.
I put on a hat before that reason.
All right. Everybody rolling?
I'm just waiting for the rest
Yeah.
to grow out so that I can just cut it again.
No, dude,
like,
go full
look good.
Skrillex, I'm telling you.
Full
No.
Skrillex.
I hate this haircut. It's the stupidest haircut I've ever had.
Um
I don't know why I've gotten it 3 times in a row.
You need those like dash marks on the side in your face.
Oh yeah, put a Mograph logo in the side. Come on, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
All right.
Peer pressure.
Camp Mograph logo for when you go to camp.
Yeah, but like knowing that logo really well, you know how many small, tiny little lines in there?
That's true.
Like it would have
That's
to be
true.
my whole head in order to get like the little fire and stuff like that.
Oh, there you
It's
go.
a
Cut it all off.
sacrifice you have to make.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take one for the team.
Yeah. Sorry.
Are you rolling, Matt?
I am rolling,
Okay.
yes.
Let's do a sync clap. So I'll just say 1, 2, 3, and we'll clap. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right. We're
My
good.
video is like so delayed.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It'll all line up in the end on the
Don't lie to me.
on the master.
Cool. The audio will. The video.
Yeah. All right. So looks like we're good here. We're rolling. Everybody's good.
Celtic coast. Klishkala cleared caches on the Celtic coast. Klishkala cleared cache. Oh, see, now I need a T-shirt that says that.
Yeah. All right.
I bet you I could get that before.
So here's
Half-res.
the order of things when we start the show. I'll start the show. Matt will introduce you. When he introduces you, make it short. Just be like, hello, everyone. Something really short. Because I'm going to go into the whole spiel for what Mograph is. Then we're going to do our week wrap up, and then we're going to get into everything James, everything fried pixels. All the fried pixels.
Fried pickles.
Fried
Like
pickles.
the thing said, right?
Fried pickles?
Remember when you were showing us that video
yeah.
Instagram where and it kept on saying pickles.
Pickles.
Yeah.
Pickles.
How are you James, how are you doing on your levels? They might be a little bit high.
Let me look.
Oh, when you got a little bit
yeah.
louder, they looked like they went up a little.
Here, I'm just gonna
Make sure and keep your waveform somewhere so that you can keep an eye on it.
Yeah, that too. Just keep an eye on it. If for some reason anything pauses or stops or anything like that, don't worry. We'll pause. We'll fix it. So.
Yeah, it definitely did peak. I moved it further away.
Okay, cool. Well, and make sure that auto leveling thing isn't coming up, because it may just like jack it back up the further you move the mic, But.
Oh, no, I turned auto leveling off.
Okay, cool. Sometimes it just decides it's going to auto level anyway.
Oh,
Thanks,
interesting.
Microsoft.
I'm gonna turn
But
this.
I think you're okay.
I'm just gonna turn my mic down so I can keep it a little closer.
Cool. All right.
I think that works.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. What's up, and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today is one of the coolest and most talented people in our industry, Mr. James Ramirez.
Hi.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us, info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show. We really love getting emails from people about subjects, questions, queries, and grievances, whatever it is. If it's something new, if it's something higher level, we would love to hear from you. We like to keep a list of that stuff going because it keeps our show topics relevant to what you want to hear. You're the producer. So, all that being said, we have a nice little week wrap up. First of all, Camp Mograph sales are over.
You're the producer without the opinions.
Yeah, you can chime in and you can give us some topics.
Mm-hmm.
We may or may not use them.
Yeah.
The sales are over for Camp Mograph. We're really excited. We would like to thank all the sponsors for sponsoring the event.
Yes.
Who are
all of these sponsors? Wait, are you bringing it up?
I'm not bringing any
Right.
graphics up. But if you have a list of
Oh, well,
sponsors, that would be great.
Okay. So earlier when you said I've got a graphic of all the sponsors.
No, I said I'm going to mention the sponsors, so have that ready.
Oh. I completely misunderstood.
Yes.
That you told me that, so this wouldn't happen right here.
Right. It's okay. I'll edit it out. No, I won't.
Nah, keep
No,
it
I
in.
won't.
It's fun.
I don't edit.
All right, yeah. Huge shout out to our sponsors. Without them, this event would not have even happened.
It would have not happened.
And we cannot thank them enough. They have helped fill, a gap that we could not fill alone. And so they are absolutely amazing. Of course, our village sponsors. If you're going to Camp Mograph, be prepared because you will either be staying in the Maxon Village or the Octane Village.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. They are our two village sponsor. Maxon, of course, the fine makers of your favorite 3D application, Cinema 4D. And Octane Render from Otoy, making one of your favorite render engines.
And I am
and-
fully expecting rivalries between camps,
Yeah,
capture the flag.
Yeah.
I don't know.
because each village will have its own flag,
Uh-huh.
stating that in a Maxon village or an Octane village. So we do a little capture the flag. That may be fun.
This is
So-
my camp. Well, do you have a flag?
Do you have a flag?
Do you have a flag?
Wait a second. How is this both the Maxon and the Octane Village camp?
Those are the
Anyway.
rules that I made up just now.
Yeah.
Eddie Izzard,
And
anyone?
I'll send a that render is fire to anyone who takes down the flag and replaces it with a pair of boxer shorts. So
You might
that's
be
there.
sending out a lot of shirts, buddy.
But you have to take an Instagram picture, tag me in it,
Camp
_Matt
Mograph.
Milstead, or Camp Mograph, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
Don't ruin the
use the
flag. It's
term-
expensive.
don't ruin the flag. We need that back.
Yeah.
Hashtag it.
Oh my gosh.
Your village, like, so it would be like Octane Village forever, you know,
Oh
or
my
something, or
God.
Octane Village rules, or Maxon Village rules. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, all right. So, okay, we've got more sponsors. Keep going.
Yes. So our gold sponsor, Pixel Plow, you all know them. Pixel Plow is my absolute favorite
Render
farm to use. And in case y'all were not aware, I'm not sure if Dave actually edited it to the beginning of the show last
I
week.
did.
Okay, good. But Pixel Plow is now offering Octane 2018 for their plow or their farm, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and then of course our bronze sponsors, School of Motion. In case y'all don't know, they just had the sign up for their new classes today. Sold out of their new illustration class faster than any other class.
So dope.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Which is great because I can't remember what her name is that teaches that class. I follow her on Instagram. She's totally killer. So that's yeah. No, it's I'm sure it's an awesome class. And then Insidium, another one of our bronze sponsors. They are of course the makers of the purveyors of X Particles. Is that what it is? I don't know if that's correct. X Particles and Cycles 4D. And I believe they were up to date on everything, and their R21 plugin is already out.
That's what I hear.
I believe.
That's what
Awesome.
I hear.
So that's great. AE scripts and AE plugins, all your favorite AE plugins and stuff like that. Great place to pick up all that stuff.
Sarah Beth,
and of course,
Sarah Beth Morgan. Thanks,
Sarah
Mark.
Beth Morgan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one who taught the Illustrator class.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then Red Giant, wonderful folks over at Red Giant. We love their products, especially their VHS filter.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
So,
Use it on
and
that
then
other
their
Camp Mograph material.
heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Camp Mograph.
Is that it? Is that all of them?
That is all
That
of our
is all of them.
sponsors.
All right.
So, huge shout out to all of our sponsors, and of course, Mograph.com and Monday Meeting, who are basically sponsors because we're putting this whole thing on.
Yeah. And also, speaking of Monday Meeting, they had chat on the show this morning. So if you didn't happen to come in on that and check that out, I'm sure Mark, you can probably chime in here, tell me when that's going to be posted. I know it's super busy, but if you want to check that out, I think that will be coming out on the podcast version of that. Super cool because he breaks down the new material pack that's going to be coming out, which is awesome. He showed me a couple of those images during SIGGRAPH, and just so cool. His whole process and all the stuff he's doing in substance material is amazing.
Yeah.
And wanted to mention that next week is episode 200.
200.
It's the 200. We will be live from.
I never thought we'd make
Yeah.
it this far.
Man, it's
There were times.
it's nuts.
There are still weeks that I want to give up.
There's it's been 4 years, I guess, then approximately.
Man.
And
We've been doing this for 4 years.
for
That's
4
insane.
years. Yeah. And we're going to be live from Camp Mograph. And I put that in air quotes because that's the little set I designed called Camp Mograph. I'm going to have to put
okay.
the real logo on it. Last year we didn't have our official logo. So I'm going to have to put the
Yeah.
real logo on the flag. And we're going to have David and EJ on. We will be
Yeah.
doing the obligatory call-in show, which
Yay.
talk to the audience. It's gonna be tough because the next day we have to have it all posted and edited and pack up, and then the next day leave for Chicago and do another show the next day in Chicago. So there will be 2 live shows in a row. However, if you are a listener who listens to just the audio version on iTunes, which I know that is 99% of you, you won't get it until the regular time the next week. No, 200.
Mark, we're doing 201.
201s
will
at
be
half
at
res.
half res.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, we're so much traveling over the next month and a half.
It's nuts.
Absolutely
It's
insane.
nuts. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm gonna be ready to rest afterwards. But
And by the way, last week after you called us out for like the full partying, and I said no, don't say that. My wife listens to the show. As soon as she heard that, she called me up and she goes, "See, I told you it was just a party the whole time."
oh
Like, no,
yeah,
you don't understand. Ah!
getting paid to play. You know.
Yeah.
What can I say? Mark says I should eat 200 milligrams of edibles for episode 200. 1 milligram
I
for
think you
every
should,
episode.
too.
Oh my god.
1 milligram for every episode. Yeah.
Oh
do
my
it, dude.
God, that is.
Do it and then call into the show.
Call. No, he's saying I should do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought he said he
But
should.
of course, if
Dave, do that.
if I had 200 milligrams of edibles, I might call into my own show. But who is this?
I don't think that's
Which
safe.
one am I? Hey guys. No, I might have a glass of scotch like I did last time. That's how I like to chill at Camp Mograph. But I wanted to mention, email us again. If it's just in text, email us your favorite moments, even if you don't know exactly what episode it was. You know, even if it's just, oh, that time that Matt did this thing. I'll either read it, or if I could find that particular episode, I'll put it there. We do have some great moments and some great outtakes, but we'd love to get a little bit more. Of course, I'm going to be putting that together this week.
Thank all of you for like listening for 4 freaking years.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, that's insane. Why would you guys listen to us talk for 4 years?
Right. Liam says Lamb Chop will be calling in.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, do it.
Yes. We'll find out more about that later. And also video messages. We have gotten some great video messages from some people already. There is a link that I've been putting in show notes that you can upload your own quick video message from your iPhone.
Oh,
or
that's
something
funny.
like
I
that.
didn't know about that. Tesla Rock hit me up this morning. He's like, "Hey, where do I send video links?" And I said, "I don't know. Just send them to Dave in Slack."
Yeah, he got it to me though. He got it to me. That's fine. That works too. Also, let's talk about the 3D Design Plus Motion Tour. We are a media partner of that, and Austin last week was super killer.
That was so much fun.
A lot of fun.
That really was. Yeah.
It's a great turnout. We had so many great people just to sit and chat with, and
people came from all over Texas.
Yeah.
There were a couple of girls who were from Paris.
Paris, Texas.
Oh, Paris, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got
it was like 6 hours away. That's crazy.
It was a lot of fun. It was the first one. It was a great kickoff, and then we took our little road trip back to Dallas with everybody.
Back to Dallas.
And it was the stop at Magnolia, of course. You know, gotta support Chip and Joanna
EJ's
Gaines.
wife did not want him going to Magnolia without her.
Oh.
And you posted that picture of all of us.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Yeah, and she saw it.
Uh-huh.
You know, and so she gets on to EJ, and he's like, "Oh no, it was the Silos Brewery in Waco." And so then, like, my wife and Melanie are talking, and like, she's like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna be really pissed at him if he had gone to that, you know, to Magnolia without me." And Amy's like, "I don't know what to do here." I was like, "Just don't say a thing."
Hope she doesn't listen to the show.
I felt real bad, but no, she knows now.
Oh,
she knows.
okay.
Yeah.
You
blew it, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you got her something very expensive from there as a souvenir, and that will make everything better.
Like a candle, because everything is expensive there.
I got a bucket, and it was $45. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the Dallas meetup was also great. This was a DFW C4D beer meetup, which was different than our usual one, and we had a blast. So many people showed up. I was surprised.
Yeah.
At 6:30, there were a lot of people there already. like right at start time, which that doesn't usually happen. Very cool. And Matt, you and I are talking about making this a maybe monthly or every 2-month thing.
I want to make
in
it. I want to make
between.
it a monthly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we'll still do the semi-annual, big
Right.
DFWC 4D meetups. But this would be, I liked it so much, and I had so many people come up and say, dude, this is great. We should do this more often, because it's just a little get together of motion designers.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a lot of fun. The 3D, if you go to 3dmotiontour.com, you can see where all the different cities are, to get more information on tickets and all of that. Let's see who we've got coming up. What is today,
James,
anyway?
Were you just no? You were at the convention, right?
In LA?
Yeah.
Last convention.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, I thought that was another 3D motion design tour.
No, that was the Lightbox Expo.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So on September 10th, the tour is going to be where? In Montreal. That's tomorrow. Yeah. And the panel is going to be, I guess I could bring this up here as well.
I got it.
You've got the panel here. You've got Noseman, Victor, who goes by Weight of Thought, Chad Ashley, Robin Hadow. Now, I haven't met, I'm sorry, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Arnaud Mellinger. I'm sorry if I mess up that name. And Charlie
Seems close.
Leroy. After that, you've got Toronto is going to be September 12th. Let me go to that real quick here. And you've got Noseman, you got Smearballs, Joshua Mitchie. Haven't seen him in a while.
I know.
Nick Campbell, Robin Hadow. And then in Chicago, which is September 14th, you've got Noseman again. Man, Noseman's making the rounds. Chris Schmidt, Chad Ashley, Mitch Myers, who we haven't seen Mitch in a while. Missed that guy. And then Duarte and Jake, who are from Swarovski. They're a great pair. They're fun to hang out with.
So nice.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Like, you see those smiles on the page, that is generally them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that is their personality, straight up.
Even their presentation, they were just like like happy to be there, and
Totally
amazing.
September
Great.
17th, they're going to be in Seattle, but I don't think they have. I know EJ's going to be there, but they don't have the full panel lineup on there yet. That's a little ways out. But we're just going to give an update on those so that every week, if they're coming close to your city, you can catch up with them. If you want to get a ticket, it's really great because you get almost like $1,000 worth of software or previews or whatever it is. Just the I forget what everything is. I should probably have a list up for that, but I know you get like 3 months of Cinema 4D to try out.
I feel like I heard Matthias saying yesterday. It's like $100 of Kit Bash and like Creative Cloud, and
it's Cinema 4D 90-day license, Adobe Creative Cloud 30-day license, a Redshift 90-day license, Sketchfab 90-day license, a Kit Bash coupon for $100, 90 days of LinkedIn Learning, which is awesome. That's a lot of. So, I mean, just think about it. Between the Cinema 4D, the Adobe, the Redshift, and the LinkedIn Learning, and even the Kit Bash stuff, like you can learn a lot in a short amount of time. Especially with all of EJ's tutorials and up on LinkedIn Learning, like that's a lot of stuff. Plus, you get all the the project files for the project that Perception did. Like that's what they're doing.
Nice.
They're kind of breaking down a whole project that they did. And it's really awesome. It's super cool. Like I could literally listen to EJ talk all day.
Dude,
like that guy is
2-hour
smart.
presentation he did, man. That was
they're gonna add a few more breaks in these future ones. But yeah,
that was a
like
marathon.
it was. I mean, that guy just keeps going. Yeah, it's good. He can, and he knows his stuff really well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you always learn something.
Being able to get these project files by one of the biggest in our industry and be able to poke through, that's going to be so worthwhile.
And you can use the code MG3DMT. And so MG is for Mograph, and then their event does, by the way, use the hashtag 3DMT, M as in mom, so 3D Motion Tour. So use the discount code MG3DMT to get 25% off. Am I gonna get that right? There are too many numbers going through my brain this week. So
Right.
we got that taken care of. Also, of course, Half Res is coming up next week. We're going to be doing a live show from there. I'd also like to mention that tomorrow at noon Central, there will be a live premiere of the Austin panel from the 3D Motion Tour. If you'd like to join us and watch that, it's going to be, we were there, obviously, Barton Damer, Penelope, EJ, Brian Beam, and Chapman Bullock. And Matthias was the moderator asking the hard hitting
question asker,
the hard hitting questions.
It was a good discussion. I interjected people way too much. I have a tendency to do that, and I'm sorry. I talk over people.
No. Let's see. Okay, one last thing, so we can finally talk to James. We had a lot of week wrap up. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
The good news here, the fun new news here is our episode that we are going to have on October 28th has now turned into an epic panel discussion.
Oh my gosh,
so
this thing is
it's going to be great. Like, Ryan Summers was tweeting about the economy and freelancers and things like that and its effects. And he was like, this really needs to be a podcast discussion. And he was like, hey, all you guys, I'm talking to you. And he added all of us. So I was like, fine, let's make this happen. And so on October 28th, it's going to be Ryan Summers.
The mega podcast.
Ryan Summers, Chris Doe, and Joey Cornman are all going to be on at the same time with us. And that's going to be awesome. It's going to be, I think we need to come up with the questions, Matt. Like, I don't know how we're all going to fit in the boxes in the window, but I think I'll make us smaller.
You don't need me on here.
We'll just moderate. I think the best thing for us to do is moderate and just let those guys go at it. I think it's going to be very entertaining.
The Mega Mograph
Bundaroo meetup
marathon.
We need like a super long, like 10-word name, like super ultra mega crunchy super. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, man, that was a long week. James, let's talk about you.
Hey
there.
Hey.
Well, thanks for having me.
If people haven't heard of you before, they should have. And if they haven't
heard of you, they at least know your work.
They do know your
work.
I
guarantee you a good majority of people know your work.
Yeah. If you,
I feel like I've been living under a rock for a while, so if you haven't heard me, it's fine too.
Well, you did the entire ending to the Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I co-directed that at Alma Mater with Brian Ma, and we had a really fun team on that. But yeah, it was. That's pretty much like your dream project, right? That you land into that you aren't expecting.
Especially one that does so well. One and two is incredibly popular in our industry.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily. I hear people talking like just outsiders or whatever talking about how good the movie is. But I mean, to just make waves within our industry about how amazing it is, like I've yet to meet someone who didn't like the movie.
Yeah. So imagine walking into a room with all three directors and Phil and Chris, and then like a bunch of the Sony team, and then them showing you like their early stuff, and then they're like, yeah, so you just got to follow this, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, no big.
No problem.
So yeah, but it's very challenging but fun. I think what the result of that film is that the entire filmmaking team trusted everybody at Sony. So all their animation team, all their character design team, like there was just trust throughout the entire project. So I think you can see how much fun everybody had on every frame of that movie, and so that trust also kind of got put to us. So Alma Mater had worked with Phil and Chris before, like on the Jump Street movies and the Lego movies. They did the title sequences for 1 and 2. And
the ending title sequences?
Yeah, the ending title sequences.
Okay. Like the one with the Lego one where it's actually like the actual, is it actual Legos?
Yeah, so the first one was all stop motion.
Uh-huh.
They
And the
did it
second one
all.
was on this like giant like turning thing. I remember seeing
Yeah.
that in the theater and being like, "Oh man, that is killer."
So they did that one all CG, and then the
Oh,
first one was all
okay.
stop motion. Yeah. So it
Hmm.
Interesting.
was kind of like they switched, but just because like that they kind of had a similar issue there, right? Like where you're following a movie that's already doing CG so well, so you don't want to compete with
Right.
that because like Animal Logic has that like down pat, right? Like they
Yeah.
have that style and animation, everything. So they were afraid to compete with that, but I think that they got really comfortable with like the team that they had and were able to like pull off something that I think looks really beautiful. So, but yeah, so they kind of had this relationship with Phil and Chris, and they had a lot of like trust, and so inherently, Brian, the creative director at Alma Mater, really trusted me, and we've been working together like off and on for the past like 2 years, like while I've been freelance, and so. Um, yeah, that basically like the trust tree on that was so big that it was okay to feel like you're out of your comfort zone, and
Hmm.
everything was just about being iterative and being how to make it better, funnier. So it was such a tremendous like project to be a part of, and like I mean my favorite thing honestly was like getting to see that film develop over like from I think I probably first saw Rough Cut in May of last year, and then we
Oh
kind of
wow.
worked off and on, and then
Yeah, that's
we
what I was going
really
to
picked up.
ask you, like how much you got to see ahead of time to kind of get an
Yeah,
idea of where you're going with it, you know?
no, it was. I mean, they sent us a script, and then we did our pitch, and then once it was just us pitching though, so it was kind of like just hey, we want you to work on this, so pitch. Brian pitched two directions, and I pitched one direction, and they were really happy with everything, and of course kind of did the client thing of like we love this from direction one, this from direction
Yeah.
two, this
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
direction three, so we had to figure out how to like combine everything. But yeah, so we saw a rough cut in like May, and by rough cut I mean there was like storyboards and there were sections like you could see.
Right.
It's interesting to get like the peek behind the curtains where you see like the shots from the trailers that are kind of dropped in. You're like, oh, that's a finished shot, or it's really
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get a bunch more storyboards and stuff, and then previs and all of that. But that journey of the film over the time was just like, I mean, I'll
Did you
treasure that
know
experience.
watching this stuff that it was going to be as popular as it was? Like, did you?
Well, from the trailer, when they first dropped the first trailer, I think the response, I mean, that was way before I knew I was going to work on it. And
Hmm.
like, I
Uh-huh.
thought it was amazing looking. And everyone in the animation community kind of had a response of like, oh, this is interesting. What are they going to do with this? It looks
Yeah.
so different.
Uh-huh.
And so I had an idea of like how crazy popular it was going to be just because they were pushing it, but as it progressed and as I was seeing more and more and more, like I they were just doing stuff that I mean was amazing. They were just like really pushing it. And so um yeah, by the time they hit the third act, I mean it was just like bananas and like so many colors and like outlines and so many like different styles and the
Yeah.
animation, and it was like so intense. So it was really that made it really hard to follow too, because you had like the third act is so intense, and then you had kind of like a breakdown period of Miles where it's kind of just recapping his like his one last time story, and then it kind of goes to our sequence. But
Mhm.
it was interesting to find that pace with the filmmakers of like what felt like a good visual break, so it wasn't overload because you just got completely overloaded from the film,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also you still want to like explore
Yeah.
things and kind of live in the world that was just introduced to you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I think it's really interesting, like that they at least, and this is completely off topic, but you talk to so many people and so many different studios that are doing these ending title sequences or beginning title sequences, and you can notice that the style is, you know, similar, but also they have their own style going into it. You know what
hmm
I'm saying?
hmm
I don't know.
No, I think well, it's interesting. Like, there's like it really depends on the director. I feel because
Hmm.
there's things that the directors feel safe doing,
Hmm.
and so like there's directors like David Fincher where he really doesn't want to deviate too far, right? He only
For
wants
sure.
stuff that reinforces his narrative, and then you have like directors who don't want anything. They're just like just put white text on black and I'm good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And you have other people who are like, no, let's like this is an opportunity to like explore something, so let's explore narrative. And so, and especially depending on whether it's like on the heads or tails of the film. you have to kind of figure out whether you're introducing the audience to some of the narratives, or at the end you're kind of like, usually people kind of fall into the safe thing of like doing a recap or like
Gotcha. Yeah.
something like that. But there are kind of like the fun moments where you get to kind of just explore stuff, and I think those are kind of the directors that like title sequences and
Yeah.
want to just play with the medium, you know, or to see what happens.
So how do you pitch something like that? You know?
Yeah.
Like, and did you, going into it, had you had or you hadn't seen any of what they had done so far?
We had read the script,
Okay.
and my memory's terrible, so I'm
It's okay.
fuzzy on all the details. But I can't remember if we watched the rough cut and then pitched,
Uh-huh.
or if we read the script, pitched, and then saw the rough cut, something like
Okay.
that. But you know, it was like as soon as I knew that we were gonna pitch, I kind of jumped into research. So I wasn't kind of very familiar with, you know, I'm not a huge comic book nerd, like in the sense that I'm not avidly reading all of these and getting them weekly.
Yeah.
So my first thing was I signed up for like the Marvel subscription on the iPad and just like dived into all of the Miles like Spider-Verse stuff. And I just like, you know, glanced over the entire story, got, you know, familiar with the characters and like their reason for existing and all of this. And there's also an inherent style that they were pulling from that kind of that world too. So I wanted to just like see what they were doing. So my approach was to like research comics, and you know, because their main shtick was like, we want to deconstruct the comic book world. How do we like do that in a visual way? And so we knew that that was the source material, and they wanted to be true to it. So it was like, start there, pull from that world, and then figure out like a style to do. And then immediately, like, my head is like, I'm not a character animator and I don't know how to do character stuff, so I'm gonna do something where like the characters are not moving. That, like, I knew that from the start. Like that was my like, I knew that.
Like my
And
old
so,
boss said, if you can't fix it, feature it. You know?
but it was like in my head, this is this kind of leads to a number of things on my part being naive, but I was like, well, their film is already has a bunch of amazing animation. We can just use that and celebrate it. And so we'll just ask them for stuff. And so that's me being naive, and I'll get back to that. But so we basically created 3 treatments where we're like, okay, this would be a good, like, after, you know, the third act wasn't there when we were like pitching those, so it's tough to know how to start your sequence when you don't know how the movie ends.
Yeah.
So we kind of figured out like, okay, well, Miles is definitely like Spider-Man by this point, so we'll start with that, introduce him, introduce characters, the cast, and then, you know, just kind of explore that. That's kind of where we started, and then we kind of came up with very distinct visual styles. One was like very, very graphic, like almost like 2-tone or 3-tone. That was like seamless transition camera moves. It was really, Brian did that. It was really beautiful. And another one was kind of like creating, what's the right way to say this? We were using halftones to transition in interesting ways. So to do like almost anamorphic perspective things, so that you would see something like you would kind of be living in these halftones and like moving within them, and then pull out and then realize that that was like an image. So like, all those like halftones.
You did that a couple of times with Miles and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm actually watching it right now.
Oh, so like, it was that was like an interesting thing to try to explore, and then there was like my last treatment of the deck, or I think we put it first, was like kind of like very like, I wanted to do something that was like Miles centric. So it was like very spray painty, very gritty, very textural, which also like calls back to like my background. Like I kind of started in like kind of like graffiti and like doing tags and stuff. So like it felt like very like I felt like I'd been preparing my entire life for this sequence. Like
you're like, I made it. I made it.
Yeah. And so and then that's kind of what we pitched, and they were like very responsive to it. They like loved it, and it's very like the directors are like, you know, Peter Ramsey, Bob Persichetti, and at the time I don't think Rodney Rothman was in our meetings ever, the creative meetings on like the end titles, but then it was like Phil Lord, and you know, they're all very genuine people. They're very modest, and they're telling you like, oh my gosh, this looks great, and you're like, You're making something that's amazing. Like, I feel like you're lying to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But
Where's the butt? This looks great, but
yeah,
Right.
so it was cool, and then they loved it, and then we did like some more exploration, and then kind of as the film evolved and they were figuring out what they were saying with it, then they would kind of give us feedback on what we were doing, and we
Hmm.
would kind of adjust. We did like a new design round, and then that kind of ended up going into motion and then the full production.
and I love that there's little bits of humor all throughout it, like sprinkled
Hmm.
throughout,
Y-
you
Yeah,
know, like the part
that's
with where he's cooking Spider Pig and then it does the transition
uh,
Yeah.
into Spider Pig cooking him, you
yeah,
know.
it's
Or
a very
I love that the there's the Spider-Man sitting behind the desk meme, you
yeah.
know, like
Oh
just
yeah.
loads and loads of that. That's so funny.
It's Phil. I feel like that's Phil's fingerprint. Like he's very funny and he wants like the
Uh-huh.
outrageous, that's kind of like his feedback would constantly be like, how do we make this more outrageous? And it's like, what does outrageous mean? And so he
Hmm.
just wanted us to explore like if you're in the multiverse, like what chaos could happen and like what do
Yeah.
you have this many Spider-Men and women or whatever characters, spider characters, like what do you do? And so we were writing all these different vignettes throughout. Like in the studio, we would just kind of like turn around and be like, "All right, everybody, shoot out ideas." I think on the
Hmm.
Art of the Title article interview that they did with us, Brian submitted to them like like kind of like a screen grab of like all the different things that we had yelled out like in
Uh-huh.
the studio, and then there's like certain ones that got picked. But what's funny is the Spider-Ham one. One of the artists in the studio yelled that out, and I was like, "Come on, we can't do that. That's too far." And then like everyone was like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. And then when Phil saw it, he was like, that's hilarious. And so
Uh-huh.
and then he came up with the idea that we should also like flip it around though so that it felt fair. And so we did that and it made it. But it was kind of like I was talking to somebody at Lightbox about this and they were asking about, if there was stuff that got cut. And it's like, well, there was stuff that didn't make it through, but it's because the process was always like, how do we make this better? So it was always trying to make sure, like, I don't do a lot of like comedy. So it was interesting to work on something that's so much like jokes in it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I would find that as we're working on it for like, months, if it still was making you laugh, that means that it's pretty good. And
Right,
if
right,
it
right.
didn't, then you're like, maybe we should replace that. And so we try to build everything as modular as we could, the shots, so that we could kind of swap things out.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so there was like a whole section, like, so the Office meme came in kind of late, and it used to be this weird section where we had like the characters were all doing like selfies, and you were kind of
This is
rotating
awesome.
and introducing them.
I know.
But
I would try and bring it up, but like on like
No, it's
visually.
okay.
But I'm so scared
But
we'll get tagged, and then I'll have to explain
yeah,
the
yeah,
why,
yeah.
the
No, I'm
reason
with
it's
you.
fair use.
Uh,
You know.
if you want, I just sent the art of the title link to Dave. He's gonna put it in the show notes. But
Cool.
yeah,
this is cool seeing all the different thing, like
yeah,
human centipede of Spider-Man.
yeah.
I know the desk meme was in there, but was the meme
Yeah.
with Spider-Man pointing at himself in the movie? I can't remember.
That was at the very end. That's
Yeah.
basically
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's
credits.
the
They're-
after thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was funny. So like Phil wanted us to do meme stuff. So we were like introducing it.
Cool.
And
Cool,
then
cool.
and then at some point they were like, well, maybe back off a little bit from the memes. And we are like, wait, why? You told us to do this. And then
Yeah.
I realized we didn't see that final like after the credit shot until like we go to see the film and then we're like, oh, because you wanted to do it. So
Okay. I remember now.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
they were
That's
they were
really
reserving it for themselves.
Yeah.
I loved like while I was watching the movie, I was like, man, where's Spider-Man 2099? Come on, because
Yeah.
I read the Spider-Man 2099 comics, and then
Okay.
it's funny, like I left before I saw that scene, and I didn't even
Oh.
know it was in there until like months later when someone mentioned it to me.
Yeah, it's I feel like you kind of have to do that because it's like Miguel is like, it's like the Hispanic Spider-Man. You got to have that in there.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting because like there was this I'll follow up with a link to this too, but there was this Mondo poster in one of their offices that they would point at that had kind of all of the like spider characters in the Spider-Verse listed on
Uh-huh.
it. was all of these crazy different
Wow.
characters, and so they were definitely trying to like see which ones they could incorporate, and the ones that they like, we made nods to a bunch of them on that list. So like the suits like in his lair, there's other suits from other characters in the Spider-Verse that, like kind of got nods to, but we didn't get to feature.
Hmm.
Also like throughout our sequence, like mainly kind of like there's a band shot where he's kind of crowd surfing. We try to pepper in a bunch of different suits into there to mix
Cool.
it up. So there was a lot of like, I mean, there's just so many characters, and they wanted to like uh acknowledge that they existed, but we couldn't obviously put everyone in there. So
How
Yeah.
much freedom did you have
uh,
to do this? Like, I know you probably, I mean, you did the pitch,
mhm.
what consisted of the pitch first?
The pitch was uh the way I normally build decks. I mean, it's also like, you know, again, back to like working with Brian at Alma Mater. It's a very small shop. It's like three people. It's
Hmm.
Brian, the creative director, his visual effects supervisor, James, and then a producer, Ben. And
Hmm.
so it's a very small team. They're very like tight knit.
Hmm.
And I've been working with Brian for a while, and I feel like he's really kind of been mentoring me and like helping me get better at like art directing and kind of like my process for like and creative direction and honing in like decks and pitches and seeing projects through. And so I've learned a lot from him on how he builds decks, and he really helped like kind of put this one together. But it really is like reference, so you want to kind of give an idea of like what your concept is. So like I would pulled references from, comic book world, but also like photography and other outside, the medium references that I felt were conceptually related. And then you have your design frames and that for each treatment. And that was it. It's a very simple pitch.
Hmm.
And then the next round of that included a short motion test and further design frames. And then the last round was basically we kind of revised all of the design approach, and then we both put together boards for the final, basically, or
Hmm.
style frames for the final. But usually, yeah, pitches I like to go in with like I try not to show motion reference from anybody else. I try to, if it's motion reference I want to show something that's from like again outside of like our field.
Hmm.
Like if it's
Okay.
some weird art thing or some photographer or other artist, I like showing that kind of stuff. If it feels like necessary, if not, I can make something if there's time, and then design, of course, however many design frames you can do.
Yeah. And what was you may have said this already, but what was the total time frame, like start to finish?
Is really tough because uh, I feel like actual staffing it and having people make stuff started in September, and then we went through like late November. So September, October, November-ish. But
Hmm.
I kind of was, since I was kind of already booked at Alma Mater, I was kind of working on this and working on other projects at the same time. Since there's like a lot of the early design phase isn't funded, like you're just kind of like waiting around for the production to start. So I basically was booked on other projects and trying to, so that I could be there, so that I could work on this and come up with ideas.
Yeah.
Because it took a lot of R&D and research into like figuring out like how to do what we wanted to do for sure. And then the major trick to that was this was also my first stereo job. We did this in
Oh yeah.
stereo,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and that presented a lot of technical issues that I wasn't prepared for. But James,
Oh, stereo, like 3D. Yeah, I
yeah,
got you.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Cool.
James, they had done the first Lego in stereo, but since it was live action or stop motion, they basically had two cameras and did it. So
Right.
they had a little experience, but it was enough to like really help me. Like James was like there to help figure things out and be a technical help. And then we also had like a 3D TV in the studio so we could go test things. But
Cool.
Oh
why I
okay.
say that is like um, I'm used to Mograph, right? Like you can cheat and hack and slash and cheat your way to like an image, and when
Yeah.
you're doing stereo, you can't. Like
Hmm.
everything
Yeah.
needs to be in a proper depth, and so I was like, my first motion test for Spider-Man turning was like cards in After Effects to do like different textures and splatters and halftones, and I was like, yeah, we
Hmm.
can just do it this way. And then when you're trying to get like because we use Cinema 4D for everything. When you're trying to match the same depth out of Cinema in After Effects, it just makes it a lot tricky. And we knew how many shots we were going to do, so
Yeah.
we didn't want to hit like a wall with that where there was limitations and everything needed to be in a proper depth. So technically doing it, we basically did everything in Cinema in our like rendering, and then just comped. Renzo Reyes was our compositor, and he just did like an amazing job. We worked together at Royale. I was there for 3 years, and we really got along really well. And he's an amazing artist in person. And I immediately knew, like, he's a huge book nerd, and I knew immediately, like, when this kind of popped up, I was like, oh my gosh, I really want Renzo for this. And he was still staff at the time, then he just happened to be going freelance, like, right when this was going to start. And so it just, like, timed out perfectly, and I was able to get him. And it was amazing to have him because we have such a shorthand between each other that, like,
Yeah.
I trusted him, and, like, I could give him things and be like, here, this is what we're thinking, and he would come up with solutions. And he could also jump into Cinema and like make things and like help like doing takes or whatever. So he was a huge asset. Like, I was really lucky to have him. And then we had yeah, so it was just like fun figuring out how to make everything come together. And it mostly was like, just rendering a bunch of passes out of like Cinema. I showed this kind of like during my Seagraph talk. And then, like bringing it all together in comp. But the tricky thing, yeah, definitely, if you get a chance to watch it in stereo, it does actually, it's all really in stereo, and it was really tricky, but we did it. There was a lot of stuff that was also challenging because we wanted a really like heavy printmaking look. And so we were actually batching some of the diffuse passes in Photoshop with like this plugin called, I think it's like Mr. Retro or something.
Okay.
And it basically creates like a kind of letterpress look, but it ended up like trying to not get that to flicker because it's just meant for like single frame.
Yeah. Oh.
Trying to not get that to flicker, and then also doing a left and a right eye for that like proved to be very tricky.
When you get those things that's like in one eye but it's not in the other, and it makes your eyes like freak out.
My eyes at the end of this, my eye was just.
When are they gonna get rid of stereo stuff?
My eye was literally twitching by the end of this project. I couldn't I was just like I needed a break. But yeah, because we'd also you could look in Cinema in the viewport. You can do stereoscopic to see red and blue, so you could just check your depth. But staring at that with like red and blue glasses when you're like exhausted is not the best on your eyes or brain. And then when you break things and stuff is like in the wrong space, it just really like, it was funny to like walk over the TV and just hear someone go, oh, you're like, okay, I'll fix that.
All right, back to the drawing board. Do you think that's what I was gonna ask too, Matt? Do you think that the stereo stuff's gonna just kind of fizzle?
Like, one can only hope. I am surprised it has lasted as long as it has. Because I just don't feel. I feel like the amount of money that they're spending on stereo just is not worth it.
And then nobody watches it. How
are they recouping that amount? Yeah.
Yeah, it's extra work.
It's really kind of like disappointing in a way, to be honest. Like, we spent so much time at like making sure that the sequence looked good in stereo, and at the end of the day, it feels like the portion of people who watched it, like, it just really isn't rewarding for us to do it, which is why everyone ends up saying like, oh, just give it to somebody to do in post, and they just like roto stuff and make it like stereo. And it's like, I get why people do that, but it at the end of the day isn't a true like effect, so it's not that great. But if I had it my way, I would have just done like the visual set back and just done our title cards like in space and not worried about stereo for the full sequence. But the full film was in stereo, so we just wanted to, continue that throughout, and it felt kind of like cheating to not carry that through to the end of the film.
It just feels like society has gone through like different 3D eras. Like, even when photography was like first invented, you had the little stereoscopic things you could look into.
Thing that you'd hold up to your head.
The early Viewmaster, and then you had like 50s 3D, and it's like, okay, 3D is a fun gimmick, but it's like, now we're back around to it again. Everybody's talking. You remember NAB before drones and VR came out, 3D was like the rage at NAB for a while,
Yeah.
and and then that
For
disappeared
1 year,
Yeah.
and then it disappeared the next year.
Do you feel like it's gonna go the wayside, or you think people are still gonna try and do that?
I think it'll always exist for animated films because I think it's easier to pull off. And by easier, I mean at least you're not having to like have two cameras on your set or something. But live action, I feel like it'll disappear. There's a lot of directors who don't do it anyway, so um, I don't know. People enjoy it though, so I think it'll be around.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. I think you touched on it possibly maybe when we were at
Hold on,
SIGGRAPH,
real quick
but...
before we do that.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to jump back to my previous question about how
Oh.
much like freedom you had on actually
yeah.
producing the titles, because as I'm looking through this list, there's a lot of fun stuff, and like whack-a-mole game of Spider-Man or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
did you have to run all these ideas in front of them first, or you're just like, all right, they approved the look, let's start running with some of these ideas, and or what?
So that leads. Oh, so I kind of left a cliffhanger earlier as well. So me being naive to, there's two parts to this, and the first part, the short answer is we had total freedom.
Wow.
But we did run things by them because it was their movie,
Mhm.
So it was totally collaborative process, but with freedom. And my naive part is that again, back to like Sony was such a huge help because they gave us all of their assets from like, I would basically just watch updated cuts and then say like, they all had shot numbers, and I'd be like, hey, I want that character from this shot, this character from this shot.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So they were just giving us a Olympics from anything I wanted. But
nice.
like that also meant that we ended up with like, I don't know, like 800 gigs or something of like just character animation. It was amazing though.
Wow.
But so here's my naive part is that I was like, oh cool, we'll just have a character swing in and I'll just rotate the camera around him, do whatever. And I didn't realize that everything was being animated like per frame for camera. So say you had Miles leaping at camera and you're like, oh, that's such a cool shot, I'm just going to rotate around that. Well, you would go to the side and you would realize he's really exaggerated. His proportions are like changed.
Right.
His head is really big and his feet are really small, because to get these like comic book poses, they're fake. Like if you look at like a comic book,
cool. I didn't
it's
know
all
that.
just cheated. So everybody, all the characters, there was few and far between actions where that you could take it and move around it, because most of them were camera specific. So that was a big saving grace, but it was also a limitation, right? Because you wanted to do different characters doing things, and then how do you like relate them? Because and back to my original pitch, I was thinking they're all the same characters walking in the same shoes in different worlds. So I always wanted to carry that through, and so there was things like every time they introduce a character, they always kind of have the same intro. They kind of run across, they swing and jump. So there was elements like that where we could build the beginning of the sequence where like they're introduced to like running and popping on, and I was able to you're able to get away with things like that. And then there was other moments that are so specific that you're kind of locked in. But like Noir was like, his cape was hand animated. It wasn't just like dynamics or something. His hand cape is just like mask shapes basically. Penny's face is all 2D on a like kind of 3D model, so she's all like anime style and hand animated, and then Ham is entirely like hand animated per shot he's in, because he's such a weird kind of like Looney Tune style.
Yeah.
And so like the other characters like Miles, Peter, and Gwen were pretty like safe, and the robot like SPDR were like pretty like friendly, I guess I should say, a little bit more friendly. But the other characters were really like unique, so it created a interesting creative problem solving to figure out. But yeah, so we why I get into that though is like, so as we're coming up with things to do, I was building it all around like sequences from the film, right? And then as we get towards the end, like Phil's like, well, but what if like, let's get crazier, more outrageous, and what other scenarios we could come up with? And we're like, well, we can come up with things, but we're gonna need help like custom character poses for this. And so it turned into like this kind of like intense thing, because they're trying to finish their film, and there's us like small little shop over here be like, hey, Sony, could you like, put two Spider-Men like opposing on a log and like these kind of ridiculous questions, and then they're like, wait, what do you want? Why do you want that? And so, but it was like trying to find time to like do that, and at
Yeah,
first
I
they
didn't
were,
even think about that because there's a lot of that.
yeah, so they were really resistant, to be
Like
honest. Like
all
I
the
don't know.
different Spider-Man on the bike,
Yeah.
You
Well,
probably got to have them do a specific one each time, right?
so there was like, tricks we would try to do is trying to optimize it, right? So like if we had something like that, they were like, okay, well, how many do you need? And it was like, well, just give us four different ones and I'll just like repeat them. So there was instances where we could do
Yeah.
that. But like Sony was like so busy and they were trying to finish their film. They're working up until the very last minute, and here we are like asking them to do extra work on top of their work. And they were like, well, we can't do this. And then we were in a meeting with Phil, and he was like, all right, we're gonna watch their boardomatic, animatic, and if I say delightful on the shot, we're gonna do it. So as we're watching the sequence, you just hear Phil go, delightful, delightful, delightful. So it was funny to hear that, and then you're like, by the end of it, it was like so many of the shots stayed the same, and like we all so they made it to the end.
So your
But
delightful to not delightful ratio was pretty good.
yeah, it was actually much better than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
But
Was there a shot that like that made the cutting room floor that you were like, oh man, I wish that one would have been there, or like an idea that they were just like, nah, I don't know about that.
no, I mean, I literally think that we got every crazy idea that
That's
we
awesome.
that we wanted in there. There were, yeah, that end sequence has like an Evil Knievel reference, the Jeep jumping the buggy, which is a spider buggy from the as a throwback to that.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
so he's like jumping a ramp. He's jumping a big Spider-Man, which was like my Bond reference, like having
Uh-huh.
like big Spider-Man, kind of like the Bond girls like laying around.
Uh-huh.
There's the unicycle, the roller skating Spider-Man. Um, yeah, there's just so many like fun things that I think we were able to get away with just because they were giving us freedom to do whatever. And then, I again, without the Sony team helping us with assets, though, we wouldn't have been able to pull off such an amazing sequence. But
Sure.
what I wanted to do, like, my vision was again back to I wanted to celebrate animation. So it's like they were pouring so much hard work into it. I wanted to celebrate animation. I wanted to call back to like traditional animation, like frame by frame, and I wanted to kind of there's all these like history of motion kind of explorations. Like Moybridge is like early photography where he was like studying like the horse jumping and he did sequences,
Right.
and it was like
Right.
how they learned that like a horse's feet leave the ground or
All
whatever.
leave the ground at the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah.
So it's like those kind of things, like zoetropes, like I've that's something that I feel like has been recurring through kind of my work in a little bit, like through it's like a very big MK12 like inspiration I feel like that came through, but it was kind of using all these things to kind of come back and call back to motion throughout time and animation and kind of celebrate that. And so it was really just kind of an homage to things that we've all loved, that over the years, and celebrate it.
That's awesome, man.
And then
Great
graphic
work. It's
oh,
fantastic.
it was really a really team effort. I'm kind of like one part in it. And stylistically, we did land like they like throughout the film. If you've watched the film, they kind of have these like burst card moments they call them, where like they kind of just pop to like a couple of frames or 4 frames of like they would hand draw these frames, like trace over or just do frames. And Justin, their production designer, was like he really loved those, and he was working on those, and he was like, can we make a sequence that feels like those? And I was like, yeah, you guys can get away with that because it's like 2 or 4 frames, but us doing it for an entire sequence is crazy. But that's kind of like we really took inspiration from that, like their color palettes, their like the speed lines, the halftones, the like Kirby dot inspiration, all of that kind of came from like an extension of what they thought that they weren't able to explore in the film. They wanted to kind of explore in the end sequence. So stylistically and kind of everything was really such a collaborative process, and it was I feel like once in a lifetime experience that you get something like that with that much trust and on such a big movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. That's way awesome.
Yeah.
So your background, tell everybody a little bit about your background, and education if it's related, or
Sure.
lack thereof, which is the case for a lot of people. You know, some people go to school, some people don't. So
Yeah, I was born and raised in Texas, San Angelo, Texas, the middle of nowhere. And it was interesting for me I kind of like got into art through a friend of mine. He was actually my brother's friend because he was older than me, Carlos. And Carlos was, it was a really small town, but he was really influential to me because he would go outside of our city and bring things back. He kind of was the one who brought like hip hop to our city. So he would go out to Austin and come back with like, I'm gonna get turntables and I'm gonna start DJing. And then he like went to like Dallas and like was like, I'm gonna do graffiti. And then
He'd go to Dallas and be like, there's nothing there.
right.
We got to go somewhere else.
Well, back in the day, it was like Deep Ellum was like
Deep Ellum, yes.
popular,
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of culture and stuff experimentation and art thinking that I got from him. And so like kind of in high school, I started getting into art, and then there was like a portfolio class at our local museum with like 3 students that I took up, and because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and at this class, the teacher was like, well, you got to build a portfolio and you got to submit it to schools. And I was like, okay. And she's like, we're going to submit to like 3 schools. We're going to submit to the Kansas City Art Institute in Kansas City, which is not part of the Art Institute chain. It's a private school.
Okay, that's good. Never mind. I was going to say.
I saw you. That's why I said that. And then it was like Otis and then the Chicago Art Institute, which also is private, not part of the chain. And so these are the schools that she was like, we should do, and you need to do a self-portrait, and you need to do a painting, and you need to do all these things that we're going to take slides of and do. And so we submitted it, and I submitted only to the Kansas City Art Institute first, and actually heard back, and they were like, yeah, we're interested in, and we'll give you like a merit award if you come. And I was like, okay, cool. So I basically just like blindly decided this is what I was going to do, and nobody in my family had ever gone to college before. And my mom, for whatever reason, didn't tell me no. Like, I find it very surprising for her not to be like, what do you mean you want to go to art school? Like, what are you going to do with that? And like, no one like shot me down, and everyone was like, sure, okay. Like, we don't have any family there. You're just going to move to Kansas City, Missouri? Like, okay. So I did that. And then while I was there, at that point in my life, I was already like really interested in computers. And like I said, and like, unbeknownst to me, graffiti is basically typography. So I was doing typography. I just didn't know. And I was already doing computers. I was doing like Flash animation, and yeah. But it was like the big influencers were like, Press Tube used to do these like very interactive, like cool, like almost like frame by frame animation stuff that was like really interactive. You could move your mouse around and it would like animate each frame. Mm-hmm. And there was like PlayStation and Too Advanced, and it was all these things. I was learning about animation without realizing that I was learning animation just because I thought it was cool.
Right.
And so I was into like this type of animation. And then when I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, after my first year, I go into like my program, which is like photography and new media, and they're like, oh, well, there's a group here that, they came to school here. A few of them came to school here. Now they started a studio. You should check them out. They're called MK12. And I was like, MK12, what? And so like, I was so like ignorant to like this world. And then once I looked them up, and I was blown away. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to learn After Effects then. So I learned After Effects and started doing motion stuff. And then luckily, there was an adjunct professor who came on to campus, my friend Scott Peters, who was teaching Maya and After Effects, and he really introduced me to the drug that I got addicted to. And I ended up like doing an internship with MK12 my junior year, loved it. We had good chemistry, and then straight out of school, they hired me, and I went full time in like 2005. And was there until 2013-ish. So like it's like almost like 9 years, but like with my internship and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because it was again a world that I wasn't really familiar with, and I always feel like an odd duck when I come into this industry, because there's a lot of people who got into this because they were like so interested in filmmaking, and like so many people were like, I remember the first time I saw Star Wars and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and like I never really had any of those like aha moments for me. I didn't like nobody in my family was really into like art or understood what like how films were, this like medium or anything. So it was I feel like I was getting into everything late, but learning it through a different lens because I just was like an outsider. But the interesting thing about MK12 was that they always call themselves an artist collective. And I didn't really understand that until after I left, but they are very much filmmakers who happen to use After Effects and 3D as their
Right.
like, medium of choice, but
Mhm.
their attention to story and everything really kind of resonated with me in a way that I just hadn't experienced all that before. So as you're getting to college and you're just kind of like, that's when your world opens up, right? Because you're so contained within your family and your bubble, and then when you get to college, your kind of mind is opened up to all these different things. And so in my new media department, getting introduced to like installation art and sound artist and just like visual arts across the board, it opened up my mind of what you could create and why you could create it, and how like so many things you could create. And um and then being with them, and kind of what I didn't know at the time was like learning how to be a filmmaker, and they just happened to do commercial work, but it was like the cyclical process with them where they would do client work to kind of get money to fund short films, which then would like bring in new client work, and then it kind of just was like this process. And like that in the Midwest, you can do that because there's not a lot of overhead, and you have like a huge warehouse. They were literally in a warehouse. Well, the second building that we moved into, but both spaces we were in while I was there had like a special like green screen area where we could shoot stuff. And like that's very rare in LA for any place to have like a studio set up like at
Really?
the studio. Yeah, like that's nobody
That's
really
funny.
has that. You go and like shoot somewhere, rent space. You don't. Nobody has room for
Yeah,
that.
it's too much
That's
overhead,
interesting.
especially
Yeah,
especially
it's
in that
funny
area.
because several of the places that I've worked for here in Dallas, all of them have green screens
I
in their
know.
studio.
It's because real
It-
estate's
It's like,
cheap here.
yeah,
You
real estate's super cheap.
you get
That's why
spoiled.
Barton keeps on buying all these places.
You get spoiled because like you would be working on something and you're like a pitch, let's say, and you're like, well, I want to go over to the stage and just shoot a hand so I can like green screen it out and like have it holding something. And like you were
Yeah.
able to do these things. Like we didn't use stock, it was like we would
Yeah.
just go shoot. We would scan things. Everything was about this kind of like DIY process. And so it was I learned so much from them, and it really kind of influenced the artist I am today by really being around them. They're all
When again did you start working for MK12?
2005 is my official start. I was there during
So
like
I mean, like
2003, 4.
to me, they were one of the most influential like studios on me when I was going through college. Like I remember seeing the Stranger Than Fiction stuff, and like was completely blown away by it. It's like,
Yeah.
this is beautiful stuff, and it helps out the story so well, and it's beautiful motion graphics and stuff like that, and it's like that the stuff that I think MK12 did, like, is still resonating to this day and still seen as pretty fresh.
Yeah, I was just kind of like looking back through stuff that, like when I started, like they had just finished, let's see, a few big projects. Like, some of their influential pieces when I started there that were like before me was like Macho Box Brazil inspired, which was basically like kinetic typography that introduced everyone to like 90-degree camera moves and
Yeah.
kinetic
Yep.
type. There was Ultra Love Ninja, which was like super fun and cool. And Sweater Porn was out, which was like just this weird, like they took old like Sears catalogs and scanned them in and like made these weird animations from them.
That's fun.
And Embryo was another piece that was like just another short film they had done. So there's a lot of like that, and then like music videos that they were doing, like Hot Hot Heat and the Faint Agenda Suicide. There was a lot of stuff that was like just like radical to me, but that people were doing this and like using like especially like the music video stuff, like using that as like a narrative, like it's a contained narrative, right? Like
Hmm.
you're taking a song, you're just making your own visuals to it, and they had a lot of freedom with that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then like Stranger in Fiction was like my first film project there, and we were all new to film. We didn't know how to do anything. That film actually, FX Cartel out of Canada was the looking for vendors to do the GUI of that film, and they
Hmm.
had tried a couple of different things, and Mark Forrester, the director, basically wasn't happy with them, and so he was ready to cut it from the film,
Hmm.
and then
Which it would have been a shame because I feel like that sells the
it's
film.
his character.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and so Gunnar Hansen at FX Cartel found our work, and he was a fan of MK12, and he was like, "Hey, look, these guys are very different. They do this like motion graphic stuff. What if we tried them?" So they brought us in, and we basically were pitching to do it was an opening titles at the time,
Hmm.
and we had read the script, and everyone kind of chimed in what they thought could like work for it, and so we put together a presentation for the opening titles, and we did actually put names and stuff in it. And Mark was like so blown away by it that he was like, no, take the titles out. Let's just like, we'll worry about titles later. Let's just use this as like an introduction to the film. We're like, okay,
Hmm.
cool. So then we basically explored that and came up with a really like fun sequence, and it was like working, and we built this whole like kind of library of heralds. That's the character's name, heralds, like
Uh-huh.
world of how his graphics would look, and
Yeah.
it's kind of toolkit for him. And then it was kind of so successful that Mark was like, okay, well, what if we just start peppering it throughout the film? Let's put it
Yeah.
here and let's put it here. And then the more that we did that, it kind of turns into like, okay, well, also here, then also here. And there was a
Hmm.
lot of shots that didn't make it to final just because we were doing it to like so many.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was like that was also a lot of trust from like guys in Kansas City who had never done like a film before.
Right.
We didn't know what 2K was. We just had been doing like 725/40, and we didn't know about like LUTs and like color space and like transferring to film and all these like tricks that you needed to do and like prepare your like colors and After Effects and all kinds of stuff. And it was a learning process, but it was cool. And then by the time we got to the end of the film, they're like, okay, we actually need end titles too. So I worked on those with Ben Raditz, and he kind of was like, he was really busy at the time, but he was kind of helping oversee, and he kind of just let me run with it. And I kind of ended up doing like, I feel like uh, a lot of the end credits with him on that. And then, but yeah, it was fun. Like throughout the design process, we pitched two different directions. There was like Kay's perspective, which was the writer in the film. So it was like her almost like editing like a script or something. So there was a lot of like circling and highlighting and marking out. And then there was like Harold's POV, which is what we ended up with. And so like
Hmm.
Ben ended up pitching the like Kate's perspective, and I ended up pitching the Harold's perspective with like help from other people in the studio. And it was cool that that floated to the top, and then like one motion test sold it, which was his tie. I done some like numbers attached to his tie.
Oh God, that was so good. It was so good.
And Mark was like, "Yeah, this is amazing." And like, I'm just like,
You know
"Oh,
what?
really?"
Before we started this interview, I didn't know that you worked on that, and like now I'm kind of fanboying right now because seriously, that was like it was so influential to me, and it's
Yeah.
like you ask someone if they've seen Stranger Than Fiction, they're like, oh yeah, the Will Ferrell movie, but it's like no, I watched it for those motion graphics, man, they were
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's funny. Like, I know this is how artists always are, but hindsight, like, we look back at it and we were like, we didn't understand why it became so popular because
Uh
we were
huh.
like, it's just simple tracking, and it's just like 3D, like, or it's like 2.5D text, and like,
Uh
why is
huh.
this like? And I remember like on, I think it was like, Mograph.net or Creative Cow. I remember somebody posted like here's how the MK12 did Stranger Than Fiction swinging type. Here's an expression that they probably used, and it uses layer markers to make things swing. And I was like, no, we just animated that by hand. Like, we didn't do anything fancy. It was just simple.
Brute force, man.
Um,
Brute force.
yeah. But like that's one of the things that like MK12 was really good at. Is like Ben and Tim like could sit together and create these like rule sets for the characters and the projects we were working on, and they were able to create these like Bibles for us, these graphic Bibles of like, hey, this is what you can do, can't do, this is how graphics look, this is how a header looks, this is how a subheader looks, and they think about things in a very like systematic way, which from a conceptual standpoint makes everything marry together because you've like created a system and now things can fit into that system.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is also very represented on our Bond work too, where we worked on Quantum of Solace, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of in a reverse thing where we were brought on by Mark because he was the director to do like UI throughout the film. So do like smartphone, smart table,
Mm-hmm.
laptop screens, anything like that throughout the film. And then we kind of like really, of course, these guys being true filmmakers, Bond titles were like their dream. Like that was Ben's
Right.
like, bucket list. And so they were like, you know what, we're going to cold pitch on these titles, even though we're not being asked to. We're just going to do it. And then we did it, and then it got us to the table to a conversation of like, okay, if you really were going to do the titles, here's the story, here's the script, what would you do? And then we put together a pitch, and then they were like, okay, cool. And then Mark sold it through. Like when you have the director on your side, it really helps. Like he was
Yeah.
pushing for us, and so we ended up doing the titles too. But it was like a year-long project of doing like, I don't know, 240 visual effects shots throughout the film, and then also the titles. But back to like the system, like again, like the guys really came together and were like, okay, if like MI6 had an OS, like what would it look like, and how do nodes work, and how would information work, and like let's use a color coding system for like the types of information. And I mean, this was back in the day before like I feel like we were all exposed to like how UI would work
Right.
and
Yeah.
like
Right.
how it
Yeah.
fooey and all of that.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting for me to see them just kind of dissect it and basically create like an operating system. So we had this big AI file of like how you would use a node and like what a smaller node would be, and if you got a voice call, this is what that would look like, and if you had how information collapses. And so there was this whole thinking to it, so that then you could get any shot and be like, okay, this is a phone, this is what the reduced version will look like, or this is for M. She's so important that she wouldn't need to see all this extra data. All she would see is just the very important, necessary information.
Hmm.
Versus like one of the other characters who like, needs to see like the tech forensic scientist who needs to see everything. So it's like
Right.
every bit of data. But it was very much like everything that was on screen was thought of. There was no like extra bits or like randomness, like little noises to bar graphs just to add like fluff. It was all necessary and it was all a part of the system.
Right.
So everything was very thoughtful. And I think that's something that a lot of people just don't know about it. And I think like I don't know if like they've ever done like a talk on that, but there was so much thinking into the way that it worked. And I think that's very much them as filmmakers thinking about these conceptual overall arching things that really affect all of the design choices you're making and really streamline the animation process because everything has a purpose, everything has rules and how things work. And so it was really fun being around them to kind of learn so much from them that I didn't realize that I learned until I left. Then I came to LA, and then like I was at Royale and they're like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I mean, like I don't know, like I worked on like I would help on when we were doing green screen shoots, I would help like when we were doing pitches, I would help build decks, I would design, I would animate, I would, it was just all these things. You're like, oh, you're like a generalist. And I was like, I guess, I don't know. We didn't have titles, so I didn't know what I was.
Right.
How
So I was
many
like,
people
yeah,
were at MK12 when you were working there?
it was like 9 to 10.
That's still a really small team.
And that's including like our in-house producer and also like our in-house kind of like IT office manager, extraordinaire guy. And then there was kind of Heather, who mostly did design, Heather Brantman, who mostly did design, but she started learning motion and stuff. And so she would help us out too. But so, yeah, there was like, and then when you get to 3D people, there was like only 3 of us doing like 3D or 3 or 4 of us. And so, like, it sounds like a lot, but when you start breaking down who did what, it was like much smaller.
Yeah.
And I really learned to work on the entire process there, which was really important for me. Which is kind of why I ended up going into art direction, because I really liked working with teams and kind of helping the vision come along from like the conceptual through the kind of production phase. And I just realized that I had so much of that there that it's really what I wanted to focus on. And I was really kind of lucky to land in LA and then Royale needed an art director, so it kind of all worked out, and I was kind of able to like jump in and do a bunch of different things. And so it was yeah, it was really good. There was the team while I was there was such an amazing group of like artists there that it was amazing to land from like such amazing artists in Kansas City to like landing here
Yeah.
in LA. I mean, there was like Mike Humphrey, who is an amazing like cinema and After Effects artist. There was Renzo Reyes. There was Handel Eugene, which everyone now knows
Yeah.
because he's a rock star.
Yeah.
And there's like I don't know, there was like Tyler Morgan, who's now up in like Portland at Oddfellows, was like freelancing there at the time, and um, I can't like there's just so many artists who I was able to like basically like learn from, and I just became like I was it's just like osmosis when you're around that so much talent, like you just kind of like pick up so many things. And even though I thought I knew a lot, it was like amazing to learn that I didn't know anything because it was such a different structure too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. For sure.
going from like just this kind of like DIY shop to like moving to a place where they had a pipeline and there was a structure and there was a hierarchy to the teams and like everyone had
Yeah.
a purpose. And it was very different, but it was
You're like, oh,
very
I don't have to do all this now.
but I still very much did, like that's just my nature. I like to
Mhm.
have my hands in everything. So I
Mhm.
find it's better to lead by example or knowledge rather than being dumb. So like if I know even just a little bit of it and I can talk to people about it,
Yeah,
then
I
that
was
goes a
I
long
was gonna
way.
say that's probably really good as an art director role, is that because you're such a generalist, you were able to, speak the language, because
Yeah.
it sucks whenever an art director doesn't know what the limitations of a certain thing are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
ask you to do something that's like 48 hours worth of work. They're like, "Can you do that real quick?" Because
Yeah.
I have no
yeah,
idea.
it's one of those things where, I also want to help people who get stuck because a lot of time artists get stuck in ruts.
Yeah.
And so if you can just jump in and
Hmm.
say like, I don't know, like you're in cinema, have you tried like just doing this deformer or have you tried just doing this? And then like it just kind of clicks a couple of wheels because you're
Yeah.
like just been so locked in. Was that one of my favorite
Yeah.
phrases from college? My foundation year was my professor used to say the outhouse effect, which is like you've been in the outhouse so long you can no longer smell your own
I like it. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it.
stuff
That's good.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it at first. I was like, oh, like when you're just so focused and narrowed in, you can't see like the bigger picture. You're just seeing minutia, right? And so when
Yeah.
somebody can kind of give you this bird's eye view and then like help you just see these like kind of grander things and reasons, like it helps people pull people out of those ruts. And so if you have enough information to like help them, like I'm also really big on like doing like R&D, so I'll do a lot of exploration in various softwares, various plugins, various whatever it takes, even if we're not using that in production, just to show like an idea, like because I find it easier to be like, here, like I want to build this brain on and it's building on in pixels and it builds on in a rotation and it scales up and everything. And if I can show somebody something,
Hmm.
and it's like easier than be like, I don't know, just make it cool and like do it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can do that, I feel like it helps people a lot more and you're more useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found out how much I learned from MK12 by being thrown into situations where like I would be around like freelancers who were like, I just do this. Like I don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. I don't do any of that. And it's like okay, or like the first I think it was like the first project when I was staff there was Color Dry, and they were gonna do a practical effects shoot for it like over the weekend on a Saturday, and John Cherniak, the visual effects supervisor at the time, had built a shot sheet for this place to do shots, but nobody was going to the shoot. And
Yeah.
I was like I feel like that's important. And so I asked if I could go and they were like, okay. And so I went and I basically like helped with the shoot. And it was really important that I was there because I was the lead compositor on the project. So it ended
Mhm.
up like I was like, all this stuff is I'm gonna be using. So if it's useless, it's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
only on me and I'm not gonna have good stuff. And
Yeah.
so it was great that I went because they were shooting stuff cutting off of frame and they were shooting stuff like that wasn't even necessary. So it was interesting to be there and help. And then when I got back, I remember like Brian, just like the creative director was like, man, dude, I can't believe like you went to something like on the weekend and like no one asked you to. And I was like, yeah, but I'm compositing. Like if I didn't like we wouldn't have known what we were going to get. And
Yeah.
so it was like these things like that where like they just weren't expecting people to step up and do things like that. But I'm like, hey, yeah, at MK12 we always did shoots. I know how to be around shoots, and I know how to
Yeah.
like talk to people doing
It's
stuff.
called
So
initiative.
so you learn all these little things that you've picked up over time that you just don't know that you've picked up. And so uh, yeah, it was a fun transition though for sure.
Yeah.
That's rad.
So it makes you
That's
valuable,
super rad.
you know?
I
Uh,
like to feel that.
yeah. You supplied me with a huge handful of links here, which we
Yeah.
won't go over all of them. They will all be
Sure.
posted in the show notes. For example, you gave me some of your some early MK12 work that was inspiring.
Hmm.
Some of them you talked about, like sweater porn. Gonna put all that in the
Sure.
show notes. Your first music video in MK12.
Oh yeah.
His
Sleeping Beauty.
What is it? Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, it's a Funk Strong track, which was a group I'd never heard of, but really good electronic music. It was like a 4 minute long video, and it was like I
Jeez.
remember the After Effects project on that was it was all like 3D type, like extruded into space with solids, and it was like around I think like 1,600 layers, and like at the time,
Whoa.
like and think of like that in After Effects at the
Mm,
time, probably like 2000 and I don't know 6 or 7 or probably 5. I don't know what that year that was, and it was
man.
intense. It was crazy, but it's fun to look at their work like that and be like, that still works. Like it still looks good, and it's still because like when you do
Mm-hmm.
that much design and thought into it, it'll last the years. But if it's just like toss away stuff, it doesn't really hold up.
And then History of
Huh.
America.
Yeah, that was like the first short film that I got to take part on. That was really cool. We all acted in it. We all helped make it.
Oh, and you actually cut one of the reels as well. Which year was
Yeah,
that?
so well, I did a few. It was really awesome of them to trust this random stranger to cut their work reels. But I learned a lot from Timmy and Ben, who would cut these amazing reels. I think everyone always would remember their reels because they were so different and kind of stand out, and their music tracks are always so different. But it was fun to kind of have like an outsider's point of view on their work and
Yeah.
kind of connect these dots because they had been cutting reels a lot with the same work, So it's like, how do you keep things fresh? And it would let me cut a couple. That year was 2009, I think.
That's something that I
Um,
think a lot of people, I've heard of a lot of people doing, is two people will say, okay, I'm going to cut your reel, you cut my reel, because it is an outside perspective.
yeah, I have heard people do that, and it's also like, or if you have an editor friend, just showing
Yeah.
your editor friend, and then they'll be like, "No, you use this shot weird," or
Yeah.
it's nice to get outside perspective. Um, but yeah, they were very generous in letting me cut a couple of their reels. It was fun. I learned a lot. It really influences how I cut reels of my own now. So
Mhm.
And you've got some, we'll put all these in the notes too, some early motion references that were favorites of yours. Um,
yeah,
I don't know if there's
old
anything in particular
If I was
that.
doing references, it'd all be just like Stranger Than Fiction, yo.
Well, I just wanted to like give like some references. Like I feel like I was talking to maybe Ryan and Renzo the other day about this. Is like uh I feel like our industry is getting of the age now where it's almost like we can start having like a history class of like
Yeah.
Yeah.
what was really influential. And so like there's studios at the time that were doing amazing stuff where like Lobo was doing really cool like mixed media work out of Brazil. Shinola was doing these amazing music videos that I think again like exploring narratives, which I thought like they did the Beck E Pro video, which I linked, and then there's forget the other one that I linked, but there was some really cool. Oh, there Go with the Flow, the Queens of the Stone Age video was like such an amazing thing at the time. And you see like some of their behind the scenes how they did it with like green screen and makeup, and it was really cool. But there was like all this early work that I think a lot of people don't like. We're so saturated in work now, like so much work is done in a month that you could never see everything that's being made.
Right.
But
For
at that
sure.
time, pieces were like you were kind of holding on to work and dropping it at certain points of the year because like projects were kind of so sparse, and so
Hmm.
there really wasn't that many shops at the time, and so it was interesting how work was like presented back then and how important websites were. And when you posted work, you kind of wanted to like build up your library of work and then drop a new website.
Yeah.
And there, like a lot of the early psyop work was, really influential. Yeah, there were so many big people and pieces that I just wanted to include like a couple of things that I thought were really cool.
For sure.
Um, but I feel like there's a lot of like newer people who've gotten into motion design who just don't understand all these other things that have existed, and like all these, I don't know, I don't.
realize the like where it started,
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
trying to, I was talking to my wife about this like the other weekend. I was trying to figure out the proper art term for it. And I think the art term is called simulacra, which is like when basically art is created, right? And then it's referencing something else. And then another piece is made that's referencing that
Okay.
reference of the
Yeah.
reference. And then,
Simulacrum.
so you
An
basically,
image or representation of someone or something.
well, it's like, but so like, say if you made something and I made a motion piece and I'm referencing you, and then Renzo made a piece that was referencing my piece, but he doesn't know your piece existed. So it begins to like remove the original, and so it becomes like a representation of a representation of a representation.
Right.
So I feel like motion design now has gotten to where like people are referencing things that they didn't realize were referencing other things, and so
Yeah, I
it's
wonder
just,
how many people are making Beeple renders that don't realize that they're actually ripping off Beeple.
yeah, or it's just like, it's not even like ripping off. It's just like you don't even understand that there was this original
Right.
inspiration
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
came
yeah.
from.
Yeah.
And so it's like I thought like if someone were to start generating this list of all old pieces that still exist online, at least you could kind of reference and see kind of like by the year maybe like, oh, in 2008 these are like the top like pieces that dropped that everyone was referencing and looking at, and I think there was like always something that was kind of happening before like we get to like the, I don't know, like I don't know what year that would be, like 2014 or 15 or whatever, where it just started getting super saturated. But uh, maybe it's just like the older part of me, who just like feels older in this field or something. But yeah, I just, there's so much good work out there that still holds up that we all reference. Like all the early music videos, that like those director DVDs that came out with like
we all had those. That set.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Chris Cunningham,
Michelle
was my jam.
Gondry.
I loved that one.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it
man.
was like these things, this collection of stuff of work that was so influential to all these filmmakers at the time. Like, I ended up working on a Nike piece at Royale for like their Better World campaign, and like to me, it was like my All Is Full of Love, like Chris Cunningham, like homage. Because like it was all white robots, like putting together shoes. But it's like these things that like I feel like even if you're just nodding to them and it's like acknowledging them, I think it makes your work richer and deeper because things have been done before you.
Yeah, that robot thing, it was so ahead of its time. I mean, everybody's doing the robot thing again.
Yeah.
Like you see it in so many places. Art imitating art, the tragically ludicrous. The ludicrously tragic,
remember,
like when a clown dies.
I remember seeing that back in the day and thinking, man, this is so realistic. Like, like, and some of it was 3D, but now you look at it and you're like, okay, I can see, I can see now.
The face and
yeah.
But like a lot of that, is just so conceptual and it holds up so well. Even like Window Licker from like Aphex Twin, like that's a really old one. It's so creepy and weird, but it just holds up and it's well done and like I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. Like, we used to get like the Res DVDs back in the day, and used to like have like the popular stuff, and Res Fest was a big thing.
They're even like the come to daddy thing with like that's face swapping. Now everybody does it, and it's on Snapchat and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I just want to, I was just talking to him about it. I was like, man, I just wish like, it would take a lot of effort. Like even like when I was going through and like pulling these links, I was like just trying to search and dig for things. But back in the day, I have a folder, which I still have, which is like, I would save QuickTimes because I always thought the internet was temporary. So I would just like, I really love this. I'm going to save it. And now I'm glad I did because there's stuff that I have that I can't find online anywhere. But or websites were taken down or whatever. Wayback Machine doesn't care about it. Didn't save it. But yeah, I loved saving reference and being aware of what was happening. And now I feel like that's really hard because there's just such a saturation and so much work being done.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of feel like you're being left out if you can't see it all.
And
You know?
Liam
Or
says
like you're gonna get left behind or something. Yeah.
well, Liam says in the chat he sees in the C4D subreddit a lot where people will post something and someone will say, "Hey, this looks like so and so," and they're like, "Wait, who? Never heard of that person." It's
Yeah.
you know, it's the influence came from someone who got the influence, and
Yeah, I
influence
mean, it's not a
inception.
bad thing.
Right.
It's generational, you know, like it happens when you just get used, like we and our, like, you know, I'm referencing like photographers and artists that I don't realize I'm referencing, or stuff that's been done. I think that's why everyone says everything's a remix, because nothing's
Yeah.
original, everything's been
Yeah.
done. But it's just cool to at least like be able to trace back if you are interested in it. I mean, not everyone needs to be interested or care about it, but just trace back where it did. I think this also comes from like when I was doing graffiti, you know, or graffiti and like breakdancing. Breakdancing was really big about coming up with your own moves, and if you use somebody else's moves, it was like, you know, it was a big deal. So it was like, oh, that's so and so's, you're a biter, and like they do this like you're biting. And in graffiti too, it was all about like originality. So you always wanted to like make sure you were coming up with things, like you were still like being derivative, you were like referencing people, but you, it was just an interesting culture. And I feel like some of that always made me appreciate the history though. It was like in hip hop, it was always about like the history of it, like
Uh-huh.
why the original people who were doing it, and always being aware of that. And so I think part of me, and it's my personality, wants to always respect the people before. So I just feel like if people knew all these early motion pieces that maybe they don't know about, I feel like they would like have an appreciation for some of the older studios and artists who maybe aren't in the field anymore, were making stuff at a time that was, we didn't have all the fancy tools that we did now, and we're still like pushing things to the limit. So
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Let me ask you real quick, because you mentioned that you got a VR headset. Which one did you get?
oh, I got the Rift S.
Okay, cool. How are you liking that? I've got one
I
as
lit-
well, so.
I literally bought it Friday night,
Oh,
so I've played with it a total of probably like 5 hours. But when we were at SIGGRAPH this year, a friend of mine showed up on the last day because she got the like VR experience ticket, so you could just go to like that side over there. And she is really into that kind of stuff, and she was showing me which were her favorites over there, and I went and experienced like a couple of different ones. There was the Last Oasis, which was all done in Quill, which is a world you could kind of walk around and explore,
yeah.
a room size thing. It was amazing. And then there was also another one that I really liked. It was done on the Steam though, but it was called I think Gloomy Eyes, and it was these really beautiful like miniatures. And as the story was progressing, it almost looked like a like Tim Burton-esque style of like Corpse Bride or something, very like hand done, beautiful characters. And as they were kind of like miniatures, and so as the story was progressing, they would use light to illuminate parts, and you would kind of like investigate and look at it and
Mm-hmm.
get closer. And it was like all these kind of like VR experiences over there that I thought were like really beautiful and cool. And then once I saw the Quill stuff and I started watching, I've been watching Quill videos since SIGGRAPH, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I have to play with this. Like,
Yeah.
this looks amazing. So
One of the demo
uh,
quills, I'm not, it might be the one of the two you mentioned, but it's the fact that everything is, you can scale it down or up. So you can go all
yeah,
the way inside and there's just more and more and more and more, and then you
yeah,
scale it
there's
down and you're like above it all, like God.
yeah. There's this piece, you can find it on Vimeo, and I can try to link to it too. But one of the artists who does, I think he's part of their team or whatever, but Goro, he did this piece called World Within a World, and it's literally that, where it's like an alien in a car, and he's holding like a snow globe, and you can zoom
Yeah.
into the snow globe, and inside there is a whole world he painted, and then inside that there's somebody holding something in his hand, and then you can zoom into that, and then inside that is like a whole world, and it's amazing. And so there's a lot of that, and they just added animation, so you can do like
Mm-hmm.
frame
Yeah.
by frame animation, and
Yeah.
also just kind of keyframe animation inside of it. So it's uh it's amazing.
There's
Like I
there's
feel
definite sorry there's
I'm looking at
definitely
this world in
differences between quill and medium though, so also down, like I would
Mhm.
say definitely because they feel similar, like don't like not try one or the other, you know what I'm saying?
I I tried medium, and I thought maybe it wasn't for me. I'm just not a sculptor, I think. I like drawing.
You know what's funny about it is like I'm not a sculptor either, but there's something so soothing about like turning on the lathe and like I don't even know if a lot of people know you can do this and like sit there and like lathe it. Like it's a soothing
Yeah.
just I don't know. It's like meditation or something.
Yeah. So I've had a short film in the back of my head for I want to see. I think it's like going on 4 years now. When I was at Royale, me and a producer friend there, Giselle, Gail, who left as well. Let's see here. Trying to find my folder of presentations. Yeah, 2016. So I think like 3 years ago, like we put together this story to work on something together, and we were going to pitch it to Royale to make, and then we just never did. But the idea at the time was to make something with a open WebGL, I think it's called, where like you're doing 3D in the browser. And my idea was that I wanted a lot of people to experience something that it was interactive. So it was like a story that was like kind of frozen moments, and you're just kind of progressing through it. And basically, I got stuck because it's all based around characters, and I don't do character design or animation. So it's basically been stuck because I felt very insecure about it, and I couldn't do it. And I don't have money to like pay people to bring on to do it. It's not like I have funding or something. So I thought about it, and then to be completely fair, when I met Jess at Seagraph, I like had this urge again. I was like, I should really just talk to Jess and see if she'd be interested in like doing characters for me. And I almost did, and then I was like, and then I started watching Quill stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe I can do like an interpretive version of characters, like very like loose and like in
Yeah.
my style in 3D, and so or in VR. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of really my reason is that I want to see if I can get this idea out of my head because we spent so long working on the story. The story's done, and it's a great. I think it's a really good story, and I think you can tell when ideas are good is when you sit with it for a long period of time and you come back and you're still excited about it. And I've been sitting on this for like 3 years and I'm still really excited about it. And I hope to kind of like learn, like my goal is for the rest of the year is to really kind of hunker down and learn Quill and then try to start working on this. And then we'll see if I can do it or not. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm accountable. So see if that helps.
What do you
Talk
think
to
about?
Beeple, he'll keep you accountable.
Yeah. What do you think about the? Have you done the thing where you could see outside of the helmet?
Oh, like where
the-
you just like turn on the pass through?
Yeah, the pass through stuff. That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it's cool. It's weird because the quality is so like it's nice for awareness just so you can see where things are, but
Right.
when you try to like focus and look at things, it really hurts your eyes because it's so like
Yeah.
I don't know,
It's
like
doing that thing,
hobbled together.
you know, where you see like the one thing with one eye and not on the other.
Yeah.
But it is so cool because you sometimes you get the headset just situated just how you like it, and
You
you're
don't
like,
wanna move.
yeah, you're like, oh, I need a swig of my drink, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
You double, well, if you have the beta version
Yeah,
clicked on, you double
I
click.
s-
Yeah,
yeah, I said it. You can go into the settings now, and there's a hotkey. You can set the hotkey.
yeah,
So I set it to double tap the Oculus button. Yeah.
yeah. And then you're
Um,
like, oh, here's my drink, and it's funny because people who don't realize are like, how do you know where everything is? You have a headset on, you know?
Yeah, what's funny is like my wife walked in the room when I was first playing with it and she was talking to me and I was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh wait, double tap. I was like, oh hey, I can see you.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, my cat finds the wire to be fun to play with, so I try to not step on her when I'm doing VR.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I like there's something about me that loves throwing myself into things that I suck at, or not necessarily suck at, but not that I'm not good at. I love DJing. I've been DJing since like back in the day. Like I said, my friend Carlos got me into it. So I'm a bedroom DJ. I have two Technique 1200s set up in my house, and I DJ every now and then. And like I'm not great at it, but I love doing it. But it's cool. It's like I love scratching. I'm not great at it. When I was doing graffiti, I wasn't amazing at it, but I got to like meet amazing artists and learn like where my limits were. But I like doing these things that I'm not very good at, and it just kind of like makes you bring a different perspective to the work that you are doing that you are good at, you know? So it's
Yeah.
fun to have these things. And so VR to me is like, I feel like this thing, I wasn't interested in it until I saw the creative tools.
Yeah.
2 years ago at SIGGRAPH in LA, there was a guy who was doing a demo of a VR graffiti game. And I think it was called Ghost Paint. It was by Epic, and I think it vanished. I don't think it got made. But
There
it
is
was
a
the first time
graffiti game. Maybe they renamed it.
that's King Spray. It's
Oh,
different,
okay.
but it's kind of same premise. But this guy, his demo was just so good. It felt so natural. Like it felt so natural. I remember like at SIGGRAPH they had it set up where there was this big wall and they had it projected. So as you're in the headset, everyone can see what you're doing, and there was a wall. So I was painting and I was kind of doodling a little bit, and then I was like, "Oh, this feels really good." And I started drawing a character, and I just stopped and I took the headset off and I looked behind me and I realized there was just this crowd had gathered. So I think they thought that I was like an artist like who was demonstrating this. And I was like, I have to stop. Like I would just be here all day. This is so amazing. And then I regretted it for the rest of like the years that I didn't play with it more, and then it obviously disappeared. But now that I have this again, like I had that same immediate reaction. This like visceral reaction to like drawing in space is just so amazing, and yeah, it's an interesting experience, and I want to make something in that world.
I mean, if you have the whole room space on and you're doing something in 3D and you're walking around it and like checking it out and being able to step back and it's different.
And they've also added like spatial audio, so like you'll do some of the experiences and they have like you're walking around a drawing, but then there's like sounds coming from specific areas.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely a believer. I'm sold, and I'm really excited to learn something new if I can find the time for it. And then, because like also like I'm part of my personality is that I'm always working. So I do my normal freelance, and then every night, as soon as my wife goes to bed, she goes to bed at 10. As soon as she goes to bed, I split my time between like 10 to 1, where I'm either just doing stuff on the computer or I'm doing a mixture of like playing video games and doing stuff on the computer. But I'm always creating. It's just part of me. So it would be nice to like, I know it's still a screen, but to not sit at a desk to like have another medium to mix it up, so I can kind of like, because like your shoulders hurt and you kind of wear yourself out working on a computer all day and then all night. So I kind of like that aspect of like being able to just kind of not just kind of float your arms around and do something a little bit more movement based, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we got 2 other segments we want to run to real quick. We're not quite out of time, but I want to make sure we have time, especially for Mograph Recommends here in a minute, because I feel like you're going to have some really great answers for us. So real quick, let's move over to Beeple's People.
Good, because I got to go to the bathroom.
Oh, man. I was hoping you weren't going to say that. Okay. These are some really good ones this week. That's why I was hoping he'd stick around, but hopefully he'll be back by the time we get to it. If you take out your Beeple viewer of choice, mine is Twitter, and go to September 3rd, Year of Our Lord 2019, you will find one of these magnificent pieces by the Beeple himself. This one is called Good Catch, and I'll bring it up here for the live people to see. This is so awesome. I guess this is another reason I wanted Matt to be here, because it is Pokemon, which he's totally about. So he's gonna have some funny things to say. This is new. This is it's a break from Buzz Lightyear,
And Hillary
and Donald Trump. Although we will go back to that. The feel of it though, like I'm so digging. Like it's not just like, it's not the usual. It has this total sketch look to it, and I don't know. I can't remember.
He's been playing with Arnold, the sketch and tune stuff and that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I wonder if this is but it's so much.
I don't think so.
I mean, it almost looks actually sketched. Like look at the tail, and it looks almost like shading and everything.
I wonder if he's like mixed it in and like he's doing kind of like a line pass to get in the shading to get kind of that quality, and then doing like a normal kind of like beauty pass on top of it and just blending the two or something.
Yeah,
because it does have
Peekabee!
it has a very like
There he is.
illustrative quality to it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now I mean, as far as story-wise, I guess, I mean, I don't know what's going on with
Oh,
this.
no.
Oh, you got this?
Read the. No. Like, okay, yeah, no, this has nothing to do with the other story.
No, the story that we can't even read on the air.
I'm gonna
Can
do
we
the
not
back-
read that?
Okay. No, I don't think we should read that. Well, that is number 3 on the list, but I don't
Okay.
think we should read the story, or else it'll just be bleeped every other word. But this one, let's finish this one. The story behind this, though, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, okay, so this is like a big gigantic machine, similar to some of the other machines, like for example, the snail mail, I think that he did, or
Mhm.
something like that, where it's like they're just creating these gigantic machines. I don't know.
The person
I don't
is
know about
is almost not caveman looking, but like I can't tell what's going on with the face there. I can't see it
I don't
close
know.
enough.
It feels like they have a mask on,
And then I don't think it's as big as like the snails and stuff,
Yeah, maybe.
but also
I
the
don't know.
way
It's
that
a
it's
cool.
built.
It's a cool little robot. Like I like it. It's neat.
It looks like it's made out of that rubber material that you get like for gloves,
Oh, really?
like to wash
'Cause
your
I thought it
dishes
was
or
like,
something. I don't know.
oh, I thought it was. I felt it was metallic.
Well, it's so warped that it looks
Yeah.
like it might be rubbery.
Well, because it's like it looks like it's been like pieced together, like
Mhm.
metal piece by metal piece.
Yeah.
like scrapyard
But-
style.
Yeah, scrapyard style.
Yeah.
Like I thought, like maybe this guy made this this Pikachu.
Well, it's called
robot.
Good Catch. So I'm wondering if this
Good
guy like
catch.
caught him.
Yeah, maybe.
'Cause it's
Maybe
like
it was
Gotta
a
Catch 'em All.
runaway. Yeah.
What? And then the different size Pokeballs, that's interesting.
Pokeballs.
That's what they are, right?
Yeah, but the way you said it.
Pokeballs?
Pokeballs.
Pokeballs. Hello.
Thanks, Mom.
Would you like to, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Ninja. Go
I-
play your
I-
Nintendo.
Yeah, I hated when people said Ninja Turtles. I'm like, do you know what a ninja is? So many people said that in the 90s. Anyway, let's go to the next one. The next one on the list is September 4th. The title of this one is, I've never actually played Pokemon, but I assume this is how it works. That's the title.
See, I guess maybe he's moving on. Maybe he's moved past
Buzz
Lightyear. Maybe he got a cease and desist from Disney.
No, I don't think so, because there's been
And he's
some...
like, oh, I don't know, I
Yeah.
can't do that anymore. Now I got to move on to another
I have
franchise.
wondered how that works.
It's
free domain.
it's
public
fair
domain.
use as long
Yeah,
as
fair use,
it's
whatever.
it's
parody.
what's the word? Parody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this one
Well-
is not the same look of Pikachu either.
No.
And the people have Pokeballs
I
for
feel
the
like
heads.
so I think we talked about this a few weeks ago where like there's like, okay, do you remember that episode of Voyager when the doctor's like thing, like the thing that held the doctor got left on like another planet or something, and so they bring him back, and like he goes to this museum where it's talking all about how evil Voyager was, because they only have so much information.
Right.
It was just passed along and passed along and passed along.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's what
saying
I think
last
this
week.
is.
Like, you haven't been
Yeah,
to Earth
exactly.
in so long.
I think
yeah.
I think that's a really good theory. Like all of these worlds, like 100, 200 years from now, there are relics of Pokemon books and like cards and stuff. So these people think that by putting on these Pokeball helmets, they can somehow catch this Pikachu monster or something.
But
I
that's
don't
the
know.
thing is, over the years, people have found the humans have found so many different planets that they have branched out, and there's own folklore about what Earth was, because Earth no longer exists in so many places.
Correct,
So
yeah.
therefore, Beeple and his people have been traveling through these portals, and finding these universes. And that's the thing, is that people don't even remember what Pokemon was, you know? So there's all this weird mythology, and there's so many, and it's been so many years that it's just, there's mythology coming from all these different places, and his people have not been able to figure out like the way back to, they want to find the way back to original Earth, where it was. And
it's
maybe
a simulacrum.
Yeah, there you go. Simulacrum. There you go.
They've been removed so far. They don't understand the original.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you notice like it's a big Beeple people versus a little Beeple people. I feel like the big Beeple people are like always like the robots or the fake ones or something like that, you know? Like perhaps this simulacrum, you know, was they heard of Pokemon and how a Pikachu could produce electricity. So they were trying to produce a Pikachu in a big Beeple people body, because those are what they make the people out of, you know, and failed miserably. And so you get kind of like a Frankenstein situation where you've got to fight this evil, this...
Well, they got it confused because for some reason they thought that Pokemon and World of Warcraft were the same thing.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's why he has the axe, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
All right. Next one. The next one, oh my goodness. This is called Kim Jong-un Cybernetic F Farm.
Yeah, I love this. I love the story with it. I thought it was great. Well, of course, now it messes everything up because Kim Jong-un is a giant Beeple people.
If this is the real one, I mean, this could just be the robot.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
He wrote a hilarious story to go with this, and it's really
basically. I will paraphrase.
Without the vulgarity of just for the audience's sake.
So basically, Kim Jong-un could not get it up.
Right.
Nothing that they tried, he could get it up.
Right.
And one day, while doctors were working on him, trying to figure out the problem, Kim Jong-un just so happened to see a picture of Donald Trump, and they saw something happen.
It's like George and the Mango.
So, George and the Mango, I don't know that.
Seinfeld, he had the mango because he was having an issue, you know, and he had a mango, and he's like, I think I felt it move. And so this is kind of the same effect, basically, yes. Right?
So they're recreating a Donald Trump clone with a female body because that's the only thing that will turn on Kim Jong-un. And then he ends it with eggplant emoji.
That is a long write-up. Does he normally do long write-ups like that?
Not normally. No, he's only done maybe half a dozen or so.
Yeah.
But man, I love this. I thought it was hilarious. You know, I think maybe he had the idea for it in the first place, you know, and he's like, oh, I don't want Matt and Dave to mess up this people. I need them to know what this is.
Yeah. Got to get it right.
But I mean, this maybe explains the whole story. Like, you know, last week or whatever, whenever he had the walking Kim Jong-un holding up baby Trump, you know, like maybe he was like, we've done it. We've successfully created my baby Trump, you know?
But that one, he had like sex change though. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
everything is weird.
They're gender swapped.
Right. Yeah.
They're saluting. I'm assuming that they're saluting Kim Jong, right? Because he left the hospital apparently to come and see this, and he entered the room, and I don't know.
Sure.
And then
because he's got a little IV bag, huh?
And who is that back there? Metroid? I don't know.
I don't know. It's just one of his big people armies.
The Master Chief.
Guards, yeah.
Can't.
Is it Halo? Is that Halo back there?
Are you Halo?
anytime we go to a like any sort of like comic convention or something like that, Amy always sees the Halo people, and she's like, "Ooh, Transformers!" Like, no.
Oh, hey, look, it's Halo.
Those aren't Transformers.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Well, let's move on to our last segment, and it's called Mograph Recommends. James, we're going to ask you all the questions.
I'm gonna disclaimer this section by I don't do favorites.
And
But
that's fine. That's fine.
but to get around this,
Mm-hmm.
I tricked my wife and I said, "Hey, I have some questions to ask you. What you think my response might be?" And she was like, "What for?" And I
That's
was like,
smart, dude.
no reason." And
Oh,
so
nice.
I went through and her answers were interesting.
All
But she
right.
did give me some good insight into my answers.
I like this. All right.
So let's
Well,
try it.
all right. Favorite movie?
Oh, crap. I think by obligation I'm supposed to just say Spider-Verse. I don't think I can say anything
Right.
else.
Yeah.
Contractual
No.
obligation.
You're not the first one to say that, though.
Right.
You're not the first one to say that on the show.
If not though, I have another tier. I really like movies that deal with well there's my gosh. I like movies that deal with memories. So I really like Memento. I really like Eternal Sunshine on a Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
And then kind of outside that gamut, I really love Scott Pilgrim Saves the World. There's
Good
it's
movie.
something
Yeah.
the craft to it, like the
Mhm.
transitions, the thinking behind everything. Again with like Shinola graphics and a title sequence, like it has everything that rings the bells for me that I wasn't even aware of that comic, but it's just so well done and the casting and everything. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorites.
All right. Now, music.
Oh, music is just what I listen to or favorites?
Okay, you can give us two answers here. Favorites and what you like to listen to while you're working, if you listen to it while you're
Oh.
working.
Well, I do listen to music while I'm working. I don't agree with that. Whatever what you guys and Emilio were talking about. Apparently, there were some rules to not listen to music while you're
Oh.
animating, but I don't agree with that at all. I listen to DJ sets because I
Mhm.
like not interrupting myself, so I can listen to like 1 or 2 hour mixes and not have to like go and change music.
On like SoundCloud or
Yeah, I SoundCloud is my jam.
Yeah.
I love SoundCloud because it's a bunch of indie music, and it's like there's also a lot of like mixes on there too. So
Yeah.
I love that. And then I think one of my favorite albums is definitely like hip hop related. I think one of the most perfect albums could be Jurassic's 5 Quality Control. I think is probably one of just like album start to finish is amazing. And then really influential on me is the Beat Junkies Volume 2. It's just this amazing DJ album where they're like mixing songs and that they've produced, but also with rappers on it. It's just like, I mean, there's like early like all kinds of people on there that are just amazing. But those are definitely two of my favorites.
Cool.
Right on.
All right, now TV show.
Oh, I think Parks and Rec is one of my favorite
Yeah.
TV shows. But my wife trumped this because I asked her and she said IT Crowd. And I think I think I absolutely love IT Crowd, and I can rewatch it a million times. And I have to thank Igrin Balkov from Royale. He was the IT guy there who introduced me to that. And so,
And the episode where they go to the show, where they go to the musical,
yeah,
the work outing, that's the best episode I've ever seen in my life. That is probably the best episode of TV ever.
It's
So
the
good.
internet.
there's
box.
The internet, yeah.
Yeah. And she drops it and everyone freaks out. It's amazing. There's so many good moments in that show. Yeah, definitely that's my favorite.
Now,
I
if
can
you
cry.
like Parks and Rec, does that mean you automatically like The Office?
So here's an interesting fact: is
Ooh.
I had never seen The Office until this year or maybe at the start of I think it's this year.
Wow.
Me and it was on Netflix, and me and my wife decided just to do it all. So we watched the entirety of everything because I feel like a lot of people dropped off once
Yes.
Steve Carell left, and everyone was like, "Oh, I just watched it to there," and I was like, "Oh no, I watched the entire thing," and I was like, "I definitely didn't need to see the last bits, but I just needed that closure." It was
Yeah,
good.
you have to watch the last episode. You know, even if you don't
It pays
watch
off.
those, yeah.
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 But yeah, the Office was really good. I really enjoyed it.
It's interesting because usually The Office is the gateway drug to Parks and Rec.
See,
right?
and that's the way it was with me. But then I watched Parks and Rec, and I actually like Parks and Rec more than I do The Office.
Mm.
And when Parks and Rec first came out, I was like, "Yeah, this is so similar to The Office. I don't really like this,"
Yeah.
you
Right.
know. But then I saw all the GIFs from
Yeah.
Parks and Rec, and I was like, and I only watched Parks and Rec for the first time maybe a couple of years ago,
Mm.
and I saw so many of the GIFs. I was like, all right, I gotta watch this,
Yeah.
And so then I did, and sure enough, I liked it. I like it a lot more than I do The Office.
Well, I have a big thing about TV where I don't like waiting for stuff, so I either
Right.
let like
Same here.
seasons lapse and then I'll just catch it all up. But with
Mhm.
Parks and Rec, I feel like another show that I just waited till it was all on Netflix and I just like watched it all, at my own
Yeah.
pace.
Yeah, I'm also I don't fully love investing in a show if it has a terrible ending, you know? So
Game of
like
Thrones.
yeah. So like and that was it. I've seen maybe 2 episodes of Game of Thrones, like the first couple, and then I watched the very last episode. So it's like, I just don't I heard people didn't like it, and so I just, I had no interest.
Yeah.
Succession
It's
is killing it, by the way,
oh, I've heard
Oh,
that.
this season. Did you know it's produced by Will Ferrell? I did
Oh,
not
really?
know that. And if you watched last night's episode, this is not a spoiler. It's just about an actor. There was an actor that was a new character, and it took me a second to figure out who it was, but it was Larry from Perfect Strangers.
Oh, really?
He looks
That's funny.
so different now. So different. You know
Hmm.
Perfect Strangers, right?
Yeah.
Valky Bartokomous? Don't
Don't
be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's go
I
to
know
the next one.
I know Perfect Dark, the N64 game.
No, this is a
No, no, no.
TGIF show in the late 80s or early 90s.
Leave it. I'm not gonna know.
All right. Podcast. Do you listen to podcasts?
I don't listen to podcasts. I think it's because I drive a old car. I drive a 2001 and it doesn't have like any fancy
The audio jack.
quality of life. Well, it doesn't like I can't do like auxiliary. I don't have Bluetooth, so I feel like if I did, I probably like my wife has like a fancy car and she listens to books and
Yeah.
podcasts all the time. I
Mhm.
feel like I probably would if I had more access, but I can't listen to talking while I'm working though. That's very distracting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I tried. I can't concentrate, so yeah, it just doesn't work for me the same. But I can do music and tune out. So
That's why I'm so far behind podcasts ever since I became independent from working for the man, because I don't have the commute anymore. And I
Yeah.
try to bring them up sometimes, but I always have to pause for a phone call, or I can't concentrate. You can't think technically when people are just talking in your ear,
Yeah. The one podcast that I did listen to that I really enjoyed was Animalators.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the way that Zach kind of led the questions and the types of questions he would lead to and kind of the people he was bringing on. I really was interested in hearing from. But I just
He hasn't done anything for a while.
no, they kind well, I mean, they dropped like Bouncy Smash and they dropped like Moonraker, so I think he's just been busy.
Yeah.
But they that was the kind of the only one industry related thing that I listened to. I don't know why this is. It's just like a character trait of mine, but I don't like to steep myself in industry stuff for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know
Smart. That's smart.
Well, it's not. I mean,
Don't burn yourself out.
You want to have
Well,
those
it's funny
outside
because, like-
influences, instead of
Mhm.
always being in
Well-
yeah.
But there are people I'm really curious about, so I'll listen. Like I really wanted to hear Emilio talk, so I listened to his podcast with you guys, and there's like that happens on various things. Like some of the Ranger and Fox people did one of the podcasts, like the Freelance Monocle, I think. So I listened to that because I freelanced there in April and May.
Mhm.
So it's just interesting to kind of like get work there and then hear like them talk afterwards. And of course, I've seen Brett talk. So,
Right.
but yes, I don't know. There's just something about it that I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird to be doing one and like expect people to listen, and then you're like, I don't want to listen to people talk. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about favorite plugin
Cinema or
for anything
Anything.
really?
Anything. Yeah.
I think my my favorite plugin is Stardust right now.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my
Cool.
jam.
Yeah.
I as soon as that came out, it's something that like I love particle stuff, and I love the idea of nodes. And once they were like doing like node-based particles in After Effects, I was sold. I've been sold since day one. So
Yeah.
I post like if you follow me on Instagram, I definitely post like way too many Stardust animations.
Yeah, you're the I hear you're the resident expert on Stardust, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I just got in on the ground floor and I've been learning it, and so I'm pretty good with it. And like I have a relationship with like the developers are super like nice, and like I talk to them a lot. One of them, Aaron, he's
Mhm.
just super open about things and asks me for feedback, and uh, rarely, but sometimes gives me kind of a glimpse at what they're about to do, like a day or two before they release it. But yeah, they've been doing stuff that I didn't think was possible in After Effects. So I'm really like they added physics, they added they added VDBs, they
What about
added
multi-threading? Is that a thing in After Effects? No, that's not a thing.
Uh,
they uses GPU though,
Oh, it
which is
does?
yeah.
That's good.
They like lets you do all kinds of stuff with OBJs. It's really cool. It's
Oh,
very
that's cool.
I like a catch-all tool where I feel like I can creatively troubleshoot anything with when I'm sitting with like a creative director or something like, can it do this? And
Cool.
I'm like, well, cool, I can do this. So
You
mhm.
can
it's
do
my
particles like 3D models as
yeah,
particles too.
you
That's
can
super
do
cool.
yeah, there is so much you can do. It's dumb. They like with every update. I think they're on 1.5 now. Every update they do, they just keep adding more and more features, and I'm like, I haven't even learned everything that's here. Slow down.
Right? That's funny.
But it's super solid. I love it.
Oh, and it's node based in After Effects?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So, what about headphones? Do you, I mean, you're wearing iPod headphones right now. Do you have like a
Oh.
solid brand of headphones to recommend, or
Yeah, I would think
Uh,
as like a doing your own DJ stuff, you got
right?
to, right?
I have these Audio Technicas that I really like. They're kind of like the lower end. They're like $70, but as a DJ, you like ear separation, and so like if
Yeah,
you're DJing, you normally only like doing one
that's
ear,
exactly what I was
Got
gonna
and
it.
then
say. Like, how
and
well
then
does it go in one ear?
they also have like a 6 foot cord, which is nice because you can kind of walk away from your tables. But those are my go-to. I really like them. I find the inner padding part of a lot of headphones is cheap these days. It just kind of flake off that
Yep.
kind of plasticky
Mhm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So these hold up really good. And Igran would always tell me that I should write reviews on Amazon because I always would drop them because the wire would get hung up on my chair when I moved back and it would fall and hit the floor. And he'd be like, dude, I can't believe those still work. And I'd
Right.
be like, they're really good. They're like $70. I like them.
And what
Cool.
about favorite web? Well, okay. I don't remember if we sent you the new or the old copy here. We used to
Oh,
say
old copy.
website or Chrome extension, but now we say app.
no.
What's your favorite app?
Oh, app. Yeah. So app on like computer or phone
On your
or
phone, mainly.
Anything.
It could be anything.
what's funny
But
is my answer was very different than my wife's. My wife said my favorite app is Hearthstone because I am
Is that a
always
game?
on it. Yeah, it's a Blizzard card game,
oh,
and
Okay.
I am
Do you
like
play Magic the Gathering?
no, I don't. But I like this because
Ah,
I don't need physical cards.
Yeah.
And I can
okay.
spend no money. It's free, and then you just kind of earn currency in the game, and then you can buy card packs or whatever. But I'm not really good at it, but I've been playing it since it came out. And I played like it's the World of Warcraft kind of world or world
Mhm.
building. So
Mhm.
like I played the original when it came out, and I played Warcraft 2 and 3, the RTSs. And so like I just love their world, and so I was sold on it. And I didn't even realize I liked card deck building games until I played it. So
You should try
uh,
Magic the Gathering. They got
uh,
there's a Magic the Gathering game on the
I
iPhone.
oh really?
Yeah.
That sounds dangerous too.
No, I'm not that big of a nerd.
No. So that I would say that is probably my most used app, if not then just like social media.
Yeah.
Is I'm always on social media. I don't know.
Okay,
The,
then.
the other
Mhm.
the other cool one that I have been using recently that people have been really curious about. There's an app called Trinio, TRNIO. It lets you do scanning 3D scans, so you can like use your phone to move around objects or a
Yeah.
room, and then it creates a model, and then it will export an OBJ for you for free.
Oh.
And so like I did these really cool animations on my Instagram. If you go to it, there's one of me sitting in a chair, and then there's one of like my cat that I did a scan and brought that into Stardust and did animations with, and
Cool.
it's cool. It's a really quick, easy way to like make some 3D geometry. It's not like the detail isn't super great, but if you bring it into something like MeshLab, you can clean it up and combine the textures and stuff.
It's not
$3.
bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's good. I like it, and they're really nice. Like they reached out to me on, I think I had posted something on Reddit, and they were trying to track me down, and they found me on Instagram. We're like, "Hey, we really love this animation. Is it okay if we post this on our account?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I used your free app."
Thanks for asking too. You know.
Yeah, right?
Well, they said they wanted a credit, and I was like, if you took the time to ask me, you can use it. Like,
Yeah.
I just only get mad when people use my stuff without asking.
Right.
Like, and that happens on Instagram a lot. People will just be like, "Well, I just wanted to put it in this like music montage that I was doing." I was like, "That's fine. Just ask." Like,
I
I'm
just
okay
wanted
with
to
it.
steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like I asked somebody to take it down once because they had done it and it was getting like a lot of views, and I had told them no, and they did it anyways. And then yeah,
Oh,
anyways,
that's
it's
not
just
cool. No, I
Yeah,
love
so-
I do not own the rights to this. If you write that, somehow
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram is really bad about that.
I know.
But
Yeah, they are.
I get really like I don't know. I kind of feel the same way about those accounts that just repost everyone's work too. I get it that you need like inspiration accounts that just gather stuff, but it still feels weird to me that they're getting
Yeah.
followers instead of like the artist, you know?
Yeah, I always kind
But,
of think like, what's the point of that though? What is the point of?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's great if you want an inspiration account, but what is it doing for the person posting that stuff?
I don't know. But what I think is like if I see somebody like one of those accounts like Motion Coolness, whatever, and they post somebody's work, I usually try to find the artist and then like their post rather than the
Yeah.
repost, just so that I can like at least give the right person the likes.
Yeah. All right, the
Yeah.
last one. Your favorite life hack.
Oh, this one's tough. What is the definition of like a life hack? Is that
Well, we always go,
Go
by
ahead, say it, Dave.
yeah, we always go by Mitch Meyer's life hack, which is turn your toaster on its side to make some bomb ass grilled cheese.
whoa? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know
Mine
if
is cover your sink in like paper towels before you trim your beard. That way you just scoop it all up into one thing and throw it in the trash instead of
Oh.
getting loads and loads of hair all in your sink.
My life hack, I think, is going to be very specific to California. But what I've what I found is that my wife shops groceries at Ralph's, and with
Mhm.
Ralph's, if you sign up there for their rewards, when you go to like the gas stations here, you can enter your Ralph's number, and it gives you like a percentage off of gas. So usually
Mhm.
when I fill up every week, I get like 30 to 40 cents off a gallon.
Yeah.
That's my life hack, is like using something that
Shop
you
at
already
Ralph's.
buy to buy something else that you're gonna buy, because we
Yeah.
drive so much out here and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
I wish I had something better than that.
It's not-
Or I guess like a production life hack, I find like just in our world is like make a folder for yourself that's a template for all of your projects, client-based and project-based. That way, every time you start a project, just start with that template.
Right.
And then the first thing you should do on every project you do is hit save, even if it's untitled, so that it goes to the right place. I believe in.
That's a very
Agreed.
good idea.
Agreed.
Well,
That
I
is a
believe-
great idea in practice.
Yes, in
Well,
practice.
in theory,
I do it all
theory.
the time,
Well-
and I don't lose things, and that's always good.
Well, where it
I don't
comes from
lose
is like
stuff.
I like looking
I don't
for
lose
stuff.
stuff, even if I
You
don't
have.
But look,
Mm.
here's my thought, right? Here's my thought is like freelancing in LA, I learned that everyone has like a template structure that everyone's riffing off of. It's really
Right.
close, and every studio has like a slightly different version. But I kind of learned from that. I took what I liked about it and then made my own. And then when I went to Ranger and Fox, like Brett has an amazing system down. Like he built that studio to be exactly like he wanted, because he came from a like world where not everything was organized. So
Mhm.
he was like, I'm gonna do this right. So he came up with a great system, and I borrowed something that he does, which is an output folder.
Mhm.
And he does that in every kind of like directory. So if you have an animation and then you have After Effects, there's an output in After Effects,
Right.
output in PSD, output in AI. So all that. So like you can go and find the
I don't love
version.
that. What I like, see, I'll do well, I don't know about output.
It's not much different
do-
than us having a render folder for some.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
if I do a render folder, I'll do a render folder and I'll do individual folders in there, like After Effects, C4D,
Well, what's nice is
approvals.
like, say if you picked up a project from somebody else and you're like, well, they made logos. Instead of trying to go hunt them down and figure out where they're at, you just go to an output folder and you can find it faster.
Mhm.
But all that to say is like whatever works for you. I don't think there's a one solution for everybody.
sure.
But if you have something, it's easier to like devolve into chaos during your project if you start from like a structure than it is to be in chaos and then be chaotic. So like say for this, like I was just going back through old work of my older, like 2004 5 work, and that nothing was organized. It just kind of was like craziness. There wasn't even like a finals folder. And so my future self would be like, if I just organized everything, you can find it. And people are always amazed. Like I have my archives synced to Dropbox, and I can jump to any year and find client work and find a final really fast. And people are always surprised by that. And I think if you just organize yourself off the get-go, it'll help you down the line, and your future self will thank you. So just create a template folder. That's it. That's all you have to do.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, we got to get out of here. We got some massive amounts of phone calls coming up this afternoon,
many. Yeah.
and some newsletters and things that we got to get out the door. But
If you have signed up to go to Camp Mograph, look out in your email
yeah,
because you got your welcome packet coming.
Yeah.
So, and we need information from you quickly.
very quickly, got to get that swag made, yo.
That swag dough.
That swag dough. You can rate us on iTunes. You can leave a review. Subscribe to our newsletter. We're doing that monthly now, so you can get some good information about what we're doing and events and meetups and fun things like that. You can so you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt with the Mograph logo tee. Paul Babb, Feel the Bab 2020 shirt. All the profits from that goes to Doctors Without Borders. The Render Things T-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee, and then of course the That Render is Fire T-shirt. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, Mograph.com. James, if people want to find you, where can they find you on all the interwebs?
I'm easy. I'm just Fried Pixels across everything.
Nice.
So I'm friedpixels.com, Fried Pixels on Twitter, Fried Pixels on Instagram.
That's easy
Awesome.
enough, right? Well, we really appreciate you being on. That's great
Yeah,
convo.
man. This was I was texting my wife halfway through. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is a really good show."
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, it was like so great to meet you guys at SIGGRAPH, and
Yeah.
like I said there, I applauded you guys for how much you're doing behind the scenes for those kind of types of events that people just don't realize how much hard work is going into it.
I appreciate
And
that.
thanks for it's really good to talk. And this is like, I think this is the first podcast I've ever done. So
Really?
Nice.
yeah, thanks.
Cool.
Oh, you'll get asked for so many more now.
Right?
No.
Are we going to see you at any events coming up pretty soon?
I'm going to Blend.
You're going to Blend? Anything else? We're not going to Blend.
No, I'm not. I feel like this was such a crazy year for me because I've never done stuff. So I went to like SIGGRAPH. I did South by. I did I did this light box, and I feel like I did something else too. And I'm going to the Control Z thing later this year.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
heck yeah. Okay.
I'll
You'll
see you
Dave
there.
then.
So it's like I feel like this is the first year that I've really like been a participant of things and trying to like be more active in the community. So yeah. Oh, I did get this last week. I do want to share this one last thing. Hold on.
Cool. All right, then. Pause for the cause. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. What do you
Sure.
This is just for the Texas and us. I got these amazing awards
Ooh.
from South by.
Oh, rock
That's
on,
nice.
dude.
We won the audience award and we won the jury award.
Is it a belt buckle?
Nice.
It is a Texas belt buckle. It is a huge
That's
on a
great.
leather band.
Dude,
Like,
you have to wear that somewhere.
Right?
that's
Like
what
you
everyone.
gotta take it off and you actually gotta wear it somewhere.
Oh, I don't know if I could.
You
do
could just
that.
wear the whole plaque on your belt.
I could do that too. But yeah, I just got these. Alma Mater surprised me. because we had a set that we won, and then those were at the studio, and then I missed the deadline. I didn't realize that you could order some for yourself or your team. So I missed it, and I was really disappointed. I was like, the one time I won an award in my life, the first time ever,
Yeah.
I didn't even get it. I was really sad. And then, like, last week, I stopped by, and Brian was like, we have something for you. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you guys are amazing. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, I was really stoked to add that somewhere to our wall.
Cool.
Totally.
All right, we're gonna get out of here.
Well deserved.
Yes,
It's well
very
deserved.
much. Very much. Yeah, we appreciate you being on, and see you in LA. And until next week, I'm Dave.
Yeah.
Good. I'm Matt.
And I'm
I thought you were gonna say something, James. Sorry.
All right. Have a good one.
All right.
Later, yo.
Bye.
All right. Stay on the line here with us real quick, and we'll. Did he? He didn't hang up, did he? Did he hang up?
Might have hung up. Yep.
Oh. You can call him back real quick. Can you? Oh no, is he still here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Add him back real quick.
Oh, he just needs to rejoin.
Stand by real quick, and I'm gonna just shut off the live stream.